Chapter 1231. It smells King good. Not only does this child have an extraordinary cultivation base, he's also eaten plenty of heaven and earth treasures. It's like a fruit of life, a herb huandon pill, and a pile of immortal meat. The man in white from before sniffed vigorously, a helpless expression on his face. It's a pity that this old man is only good at talking. I've never tasted human flesh before. His expression was dejected, as if he regretted not being able to eat Yun Yang alive and swallow him into his stomach. It's a human? Another white-robed old man said in surprise. Nonsense. If the demons were roasted like this, they would have shown their true colors long ago. This child is quite something. It's already impressive that he could climb so high. Even this old man can't reach that height. What's more, this old man still hasn't figured out how he got there. The man in white from before rolled his eyes and said angrily, "What the **ck are you talking about? This is strange, that's strange. Is this the main point now? Why don't you **king put this child in while he's still breathing? Save him first and ask. If he's a spy, kill him directly. If he's a good person, save his life and form a good relationship with him. Of course, the more the better." The elder chuckled, unable to contain his joy. Usually, people like this carry plenty of food and drinks. It's a pity that this old man hasn't tasted the delicacies of the human world for more than 1,000 years. Yun Yang took it and walked in quickly. It turned out that there was a huge cave behind the two men. If the demons come during this period of time, you'll hold them off. With a few words, he disappeared without a trace. Not long after the elder who brought Yun Yang into the cave, a whistling sound came from the opposite side. A golden silhouette dashed up like a meteor, his voice sonorous. "Let me pass. This is not the way." The elder in white who was left behind said coldly, "Please go back." The sonorous voice replied, "Whether it's the way or not, it's not up to you. We'll have to fight before we can decide." The wind whistled as the newcomer rushed forward and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the old guard. Yun Yang was feeling very strange now. He felt like he was being cooked, exuding an incomparably seductive scent. This feeling was extremely pleasurable. Driven by his instincts, Yun Yang almost wanted to take a few bites of himself. It was too fragrant, too tempting, and hard to resist. Fortunately, he had maintained a sliver of clarity in his mind. He had been struck by the lightning in the sky, fallen to the ground, and had been caught by someone. Even the conversation between the two elders, everything that had transpired from start to finish, Yun Yang had heard and understood everything clearly. But there was nothing he could do. In spite of this, Yun Yang could no longer be bothered to think about his own condition. There was only shock and confusion in his heart. What kind of lightning was this? How could he be so domineering? When he was in the Tianxian continent, he had even faced the heavenly tribulation. Although it was a little difficult, it was far from his limit. But now, he was cooked by a lightning bolt that was only as thick as a finger. This reality, this result, was simply horrifying to think about, shocking to the point of death. If he had not been caught by the elder, he would definitely have turned into a skeleton when he landed, although there was still a chance of survival. It was said that the physical body was a treasured raft to cross the world, but it was common for a martial artist's physical body to be damaged. It was not rare for a broken limb to be reattached and regenerated. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, it would only take a certain amount of time to reconstruct his body. In spite of this, Yun Yang treasured his physical body more than anyone else. This body carried too many of his experiences and memories. If it was not necessary, Yun Yang would never give it up. What was more, the reconstructed body would no longer have the immeasurable foundation that it had accumulated in the past. Countless treasures of heaven and earth and the essence of countless mystical beasts would all be gone. No one would be able to accept such an outcome. With what was left of his senses, Yun Yang felt his body being carried into a cave and placed gently on the ground. There were other spiritual vibrations in the cave. There should be other people. However, Yun Yang could not even turn his head, so he could only sense slightly. What he could get was limited. At this time, a voice could be heard saying, "Old Wu, what smells so good? Cut it up and give it to me quickly. Good things should be shared with everyone. We've gotten the good taste, and we owe you a favor." The one who was carrying him was obviously Old Wu. He laughed and said, "The good taste you speak of comes from a living person. Are you sure you want to eat it? If you insist on your original intention, there's no need to share. You can enjoy it alone." "I'm happy to see that happen." The person who asked retched and said, "Can a living person smell so King good? CK. King hell." He did not speak again after his complaint. The others, however, did not seem to be interested in what was going on. They did not even bother to smile. Second Bro Wu did not mind it at all. He pulled Yun Yang to one side and flipped him over and over. Just as he did so, the rotten flesh on Yun Yang's body fell off, trembling, and the rich fragrance in the room grew even more intense. Old Wu clicked his tongue. "This fellow is really lucky. Look at this meat, smell this. I really King want to take a bite. It's really cooked, it's cooked, it only needs some salt and cumin to be eaten." What King pity. Yun Yang rolled his eyes inwardly. He was rolling his eyes inwardly. Although Yun Yang's brain was not fully cooked, he did not even have the strength to roll his eyelids. He could only roll his eyes inwardly if he wanted to. Then, Yun Yang was inexplicably shocked. He could feel Old Wu's hands still moving up and down his body. Wherever his hands passed, there seemed to be a layer of something on his body. Then, he caught a faint whiff of a unique aroma that was different from the aroma of meat. He could not help being shocked. Is this fellow really going to eat me up? Then, he felt a cold liquid being poured into his mouth. It quickly turned into a line of ice and slid down his throat. Instantly, his entire body felt lighter, indescribably comfortable and carefree. Then, a force rose from his dantian and spread outwards rapidly. Wherever it went, his entire body felt terribly numb and itchy. Emmy had also used this opportunity to sneakily send out a stream of vitality to join the force. What water is this? It actually has the effect of regenerating the body. Yin Yang was an expert in healing. How could he not know that his current situation was developing in a favorable direction? The numb and itchy feeling that flowed all over his body was a sign of his limbs regaining vitality. The elder was obviously healing him, and the healing item he used was a sacred medicine of the field of injury, an extraordinary and divine item. After a while, another inexplicable force surged into Yun Yang's body. The shadow of the celestial luck banner was directly triggered by this force and appeared above Yun Yang's head. Old Wu was mumbling to himself, this child is actually a disciple of a sect with a celestial luck banner. Why is it only a middle-class sect? And what kind of sect is the residence of 9 Supremes? I don't seem to have heard of this name. He muttered to himself. There were many people around him, but no one answered him. That shouldn't be the case. This fellow is so young, he can't be more than 30 years old. How could he have the cultivation of a Saint Venerable? But how could a sect with such a powerful disciple be limited to a middle-rank sect? What's even more strange is that I've never heard of the sect he comes from. Could it be that I've been away from the world for a long time, and my cultivation base has advanced so quickly that even a supreme saint cultivator has become worthless? Then, he cried out, no, how can this boy recover so quickly? Although the living water contains vitality and is a sacred medicine of healing, it shouldn't have such a strong effect, right? Someone next to him said impatiently, Old Wu, change your damn talkative habit. Why are you yelling? If you speak again, I'll smash your mouth. A few people next to him responded at the same time, very well. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against so many hands. Old Wu was outnumbered, so he shut his mouth obediently and dared not say another word. However, the surprise and astonishment in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Was the vitality of this little fellow in his hand a little too tenacious? He estimated that the effect of a bottle of living water would probably be able to regenerate half of this fellow's body and escape the danger of death. However, that was the most it could do, because he still had to ask a few questions before deciding whether to completely cure him. But now, looking at the speed of his recovery, it seemed that one bottle was actually enough for him to completely recover. How strange. I, Old Wu, have been here for so many years and have always thought that I know the effect of the living water like the back of my hand. How could there be such a change? The situation seems to have gone out of my control. Based on the current situation, this boy would probably not even need a day to recover to his original state. Then, there were still more surprises. The facts proved that Old Wu's judgment today was destined to be wrong again and again. After a total of only 4 hours, Old Wu saw the young man on the ground blink his eyes, and then he opened his eyes, a pair of eyeballs rolling endlessly. Much of the rotten flesh on his body had become dry and cracked, like the land that had been dry for more than 10 years. Some parts had even rolled up, looking extremely menacing and frightening. However, this state was a good thing for an injured person like Yun Yang, because under the dry and cracked skin was pink and tender flesh, tender and full of elasticity. It was obvious that his bodily functions were almost fully recovered. Old Wu was dumbfounded, speechless for a moment. I've never seen such a quick, instant death from the Empyrean Golden Thunder. It's like it's specially here to change this boy's skin. Is it because his previous appearance is not good enough? Old Wu mumbled to himself. It was not that he was making a fuss, but what he saw was too difficult to explain. Up until now, there were no problems with the boy's bones, meridians, and internal organs. Even the burnt layer of skin had been replaced with new ones. Your father has guarded the Crimson Soul Mountain for so many years, and I've seen so many demons struck by the Golden Thunder. Which one of them did not perish and perish? In the end, this boy only suffered some damage. Even with this old man's help and spiritual medicine, this shouldn't be the case. While second brother Wu was still in a daze, he saw the kid on the ground move a little. He saw the kid use some force and sit up. Then, the dried skin and flesh on his body began to fall off like mud. Under Old Wu's dumbfounded gaze, the person in front of him stood up unscathed, like a snake shedding its skin. It was just that he was naked from head to toe, which was rather eye-catching. Old Wu could not help glancing at his crotch in shame and sighed inwardly, feeling rather ashamed of himself. He really wanted to exchange his 7,000 years of guarding the Crimson Soul Mountain for this. When he lifted his head again, he saw that the boy was already wearing a purple robe. He could wear it from the inside out. Coupled with the hair that had just grown out, although it was not completely recovered, it was at least 70 to 80% of his normal state. Chapter 1232. Second brother Wu focused his eyes on the other party's face again. It was perfect and flawless, so exquisite that it was as if she had walked out of a painting. It was just a simple stand, and it was clearly a little hurried and even a little awkward, but a series of praises naturally filled second brother Wu's mind. What was it about being handsome, with muscles of ice and bones of jade, graceful and composed, and immortal? Wuol heir could not help but curse inwardly. He's so rich, but he still looks so. Is this fellow really here to use the golden lightning for plastic surgery? F***ck, it must be. At this moment, Wuol heir even thought that he should not have saved this man's public enemy. I didn't expect the Blood Soul Mountain's flight ban to be so terrifying. Yin Yang said with a respectful smile, "Thank you, senior, for saving me and bestowing me with the rare spiritual medicine. This humble one is grateful for senior's kindness." Wuol heir snorted and said with disdain, "Humph, you still speak so nicely." Yin Yang could not make heads or tails of the situation. The man in front of him didn't seem to be angry at all. Instead, he seemed to be jealous. What did he mean by jealous? It was only the first time they had met, and he had just escaped from a disaster. His pathetic state was in front of the man's eyes. What was there to be jealous about? What kind of explanation was this? Wuol heir narrowed his eyes and asked in a daze, "Young fellow, what's your name?" This junior is Yun Yang. The wind rises Yun Yang, that Yun Yang. Your father knows how to read, do I need you to interpret it word by word? Yun Yang instinctively rolled his eyes. He could finally put this action into action again. How comforting. Where did you come from, young fellow? What's your background? What's your background? Tell me everything, especially what are you here for? All of you had better be honest and explain everything clearly to me. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being merciless. This old man can save you, young fellow, and I can also destroy you with a flip of my hand. Wu Oel's voice was stern and his expression was extremely ferocious, looking like he would attack if there was any disagreement. This junior's trip is. Yin Yang's eyes darted around. Of course, I'm here to join the war. I plan to slay the demons and contribute to the human race. From the corner of his eyes, he could see that there were many people here. Some were dressed in white, some in blue, and some in black. Obviously, there were too many heads and too many identities. How could Yun Yang dare to reveal his true intentions? Bullsh *T about your 18 consecutive turns. Second brother Wu cursed loudly. It's just a bolt of golden lightning that turned you into a roasted chicken in human form, and you still dare to go and kill the demons? Why didn't the strong wind above the ninth heaven cut your tongue? Boy, apart from your slightly outstanding appearance, don't you have any other good points? Yin Yang smiled sheepishly and replied telepathically, this junior has his reasons for coming here. Otherwise, why would I act so rashly and cross the chasm against God's might? However, there are too many people here, this junior dares not speak. As he spoke, Yin Yang had already come up with 2 reasons in his mind. Together with the real reason, there were a total of 3, each of them was convincing and could not even be considered fake. However, the real reason was something that he would not say if he could avoid it. Even if the other party was the one who had saved him, even if the other party looked like a man of justice, it was still the case. Yin Yang was determined not to admit that this man's attitude towards him was inexplicably bad, and he was still a little upset. How could he tell the truth and tell the truth? Second brother Wu's expression softened a little as he said, if you don't want to say it, then don't say it. After a pause, he asked, are you from the Celestial Luck Banner? Yes. The residence of 9 Supremes? What sect is that? Why have I never heard of such a sect in this world? This is, boy, you're actually the leader of the residence of 9 Supremes? Yes, and the founder? Yes. No wonder. By the way, how long has this residence of 9 Supremes been established? Has it been 20 years? No, I've seen your body just now and touched it with my own hands. You're definitely less than 30 years old. Becoming a Supreme Saint before the age of 30. Is the level of Supreme Saint so worthless now? When did you establish the residence of 9 Supremes? The residence of 9 Supremes was just established, less than 5 years ago. This makes sense. F***ck, this is still not right. How can a sect established less than 5 years ago be a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sect? Damn, it's only at the bottom of the middle class, which means it's the last place. It's not worth mentioning, not worth mentioning. The last place? That's not worth mentioning. Wait, the last place? Even if it's the last place, it's still in the middle class, that's still not right. Are all middle-class Celestial Luck Banners so powerful now? Every sect with a middle-grade Celestial Luck Banner is very strong. Second brother Wu's face showed a look of relief as he comforted, it's probably because the hard work we've put in guarding Bloody Soul Mountain for so many years has not been in vain. The stronger the lower sects are, does it mean that the higher sects will only be stronger? Even the bottom of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner has someone who has ascended to the level of Supreme Saint, so the bottom of the upper-class Celestial Luck Banner must have at least 10 Supreme Saints. Ha ha ha. Senior is right, said Yun Yang. Our path of cultivation is tireless, courageous, and diligent. Apart from advancing toward the Great Tao, it's also to protect this world. This junior has boldly come to Bloody Soul Mountain this time with the intention of seeing how terrifying the demon race is, so that I can make early preparations. He said seriously, "Seniors, you have worked hard for so many years and guarded the Blood Soul Mountain. It is true that you have created peace for the rear, but it is also because of this that the middle and low-level sects in the rear rarely have the chance to fight with the demon beasts. It is even more impossible to know yourself and the enemy, and to be prepared for battle. At least in this junior's opinion, this situation is very disadvantageous for the future ultimate battle between humans and demons." The starting point of the seniors is naturally understandable. They have also fought for countless years of peace and happiness for the human world. They have protected the lives of the low-level warriors so that they will not come to this battlefield to die in vain. They hope that we will have enough time to cultivate to a certain level and have enough power to protect ourselves before coming to the Blood Soul Mountain to fight the demon clan. However, this painstaking effort has also resulted in another result. That is, the younger generation only has the ability to talk on paper, but not the ability to fight head-on. In the long run, as time passes, it is inevitable that they will lose their courage. What's more, as the peaceful time goes on, the heroes gradually become legends, and the people no longer have respect for them. Not only do they fail to live up to the painstaking efforts of seniors, they're also prone to ease and hate work, losing the will to fight. When Yun Yang said these words, they were spoken with extreme sincerity and came from the bottom of his heart. Second Brother Wu was dumbfounded. Chapter 1233. It was unknown when the others who were cultivating in the cave had opened their eyes as well, listening to Yun Yang's words with rapt attention. For a moment, the cave was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Outside, the sounds of battle continued to come in. It was obvious that the battle was still intense. At this time, an elder in a black robe heaved a long sigh and said, "Young friend, what you said makes a lot of sense. Not to mention demonic beasts and Xian beasts, even for ordinary eagles, when their chicks hatch, the adult eagles will personally go out to catch food and feed the chicks one mouthful at a time with overflowing love, no different from humans. They painstakingly nurture the chicks until they are fully fledged, but when the chicks learn to fly, they will throw them off the cliff directly, gambling with their lives. Those who learn to fly live, but those who can't, die. A nest of dozens of chicks usually only survives in the end. As for the other chicks, they all fall off the cliff and die a horrible death. We're not eagles, we don't know if the adult eagles feel grief, but the love of licking their chicks back then is enough to prove that eagles are not emotionless creatures. Everything is based on survival. If they're soft-hearted, none of the chicks will survive. Even birds are capable of risking their lives for the sake of survival. What we've done just happens to have neglected this crucial point. We've really protected the world's warriors too well. If a warrior doesn't go through cruel killings, doesn't go through the law of the jungle, and doesn't go through the hardships of the martial world, how can he take our place in the future? How can he shoulder the heavy burden of protecting humanity? The 7 to 8 people in the cave sighed at the same time, their faces full of sorrow. The people present were all extremely intelligent, even fools would not be able to cultivate to such a high level. Yun Yang was only halfway through his speech, but everyone had already understood the meaning behind his words. Drawing inferences from one instance was not a big deal, it was what it should be. Young friend's insight is truly thought-provoking. The elder in black stood up and looked at Yun Yang, saying, "This old man is Zhu Ziyan. Greetings." An elder in black who stood beside him smiled and said, "This old man is Shi Qingshan. Brother Zhu, Yan Jinke, and I are all from the Northern Wilderness Demonic Palace." Yun Yang was shocked. Northern Wasteland Demonic Palace. He thought that the people here were all from the Eastern Celestial Palace. The 3 people in blue smiled. "This old man is Fan Yunbang, these are my sworn brothers Su Yunshui and Yuan Shijun, we are all from the Western Heaven Holy Palace." The man in the middle smiled and said, "The one who brought you in is called Second Brother Wu. The one over there dressed in white who hasn't spoken a word all this time is his blood brother, Big Brother Wu. And the one fighting outside is called He Buyu. The three of them are all from the Eastern Celestial Palace. They are from the same hometown as you. With just a few words, he had already briefly introduced everyone's background. Yin Yang looked at the 8 people in the cave. Including the one outside, there were a total of 9 people. He would never have thought that these 9 people would come from 3 different places. Furthermore, they were the 3 great heavenly palaces that stood at the pinnacle of the world. East Pole Heavenly Palace, West Heaven Holy Palace, North Wasteland Demonic Palace. Speaking of the people from the 3 heavenly palaces, he had long heard of them, but in fact, he had never seen any of them. Unexpectedly, today, he had met people from the 3 heavenly palaces at the same time. Moreover, each of them was an elite figure, a pinnacle cultivator in the world. This junior is Yin Yang, no need for introductions. Everyone heard what you said just now. You are Yin Yang, the leader of the middle-class sect, the residence of 9 supremes, and also the founder. You belong to the Sacred Heart Palace of the Eastern Celestial Palace, right? A young hero, haha. Zhu Ziyun laughed and said, young friend, your cultivation base is higher than others at such a young age. You have already reached the level of a supreme saint. This old man is amazed. In terms of age, Leader Yun is the youngest supreme saint cultivator I have ever seen. Senior is too kind. Sigh, this old man is just speaking his mind. How can you say I'm too kind? Shi Qingshan said, looking at young friend's face, bones, muscles, and meridians. Not only are you not old enough, I'm afraid you are not more than 25 years old. Yin Yang was shocked and said, senior's eyes are like a torch. This junior has been in the martial world for so many years, but this is the first time someone can see through my real age. Yin Yang's flattery was just right. Shi Qingshan stroked his beard and said happily, this old man has never been wrong in judging people for so many years. Boss Wu snorted and said, how long have you King reached the pinnacle of the 4th level of Supreme Saint? Those who are a level lower in cultivation base stand in front of you, and you can see through their past and present lives with just one look. Now you have seen through their age and you are still proud of yourself. How shameless. Shi Qingshan was furious. Boss Wu, do you 2 brothers want to fight? Second brother Wu was extremely depressed. I say, old Shi, I haven't said anything. If you want to fight with him, just fight. Why drag me into this? Yin Yang looked at second brother Wu and boss Wu and scratched his head, his eyes filled with doubt. Shi Qingshan guffawed, blowing his beard until it was straight. There's no need to ask, these 2 brothers are called by that name. There are no other titles. Back then, their parents had many children and they were illiterate, so they were named according to their age. The eldest was called Boss Wu, followed by second brother Wu, third brother Wu. Their whole family is full of people with long lives and extraordinary cultivation base. Oh, right, their parents gave them a little brother a few days ago. His main name is Wu Shiqi. He's strong and healthy, like an old steed in the stable, an old clam giving birth to a pearl. Boss Wu and second brother Wu glared at Shi Qingshan, gritting their teeth with reddened faces. Shi Qingshan, can you King keep your mouth shut? Even with Yin Yang's shrewdness, he almost laughed out loud. So that was it. Looking at Boss Wu and second brother Wu, then thinking about the entire Wu family in the Eastern Celestial Palace, especially Wu Shiqi, he could not help but be speechless. This fellow's parents were really fertile, 17 children, and the youngest brother was actually born a few years ago. How impressive, how impressive. Shi Qingshan could not stop laughing, his eyes hidden from view. Boss Wu, second brother, all the way up to 17, they're just boys in their family. If the girls are included, before he could finish his words, Boss Wu and second brother Wu had already pounced on him with a roar. Their first move was a murderous one, not holding back at all. The corners of Yin Yang's lips twitched. Alright, I've underestimated them. My knowledge and experience are too shallow, limiting my imagination. After a bout of fooling around, peace was finally restored. The 8 elders were looking at Yin Yang eagerly. There was no other reason but that the 8 of them had been stationed here for many, many years. Having never left the mountain for too long, they were looking forward to something in the world. Now that someone like Yun Yang had finally arrived, how could they not be looking forward to it? Second brother Wu had already set up a big table, but the table was empty. Yun Yang was rather puzzled. What are they doing? Are they going to entertain me? Chapter 1234. Wu Laoer had given a miracle healing medicine like the water of vitality to a stranger. His generosity could not be described with just the word great. The gift they had given him must be extraordinary as well. However, there was nothing on it. What did that mean? Cough, cough. Seeing that Yun Yang had not moved for a long time, the group grew impatient. After a while, Fan Yunbang coughed dryly, his expression unchanged as he said with a smile, "Young friend, it's your first time here from the mainland. I wonder if you've brought any tea or wine from the mainland? It would be even better if there were teapots and teacups. Vegetables, meat, eggs, rice, and grains are all good. Anything that's from the mainland is good, all good." Yun Yang was stunned by this group of people's unusual request, at a loss for a moment. What was wrong with these people? Even if they were limited by their environment and lacked resources, with their cultivation base, they could easily make a teapot or teacup out of thin air with their spiritual qi. As for vegetables and other fruits and vegetables, they lacked them, but with these people's speed, it would only take them a day or 2 at most to make a round trip. It would be even easier if they could get the ingredients nearby. Why were they so hungry? When he had first met Dong Qitian, old man Dong had been so miserable when he was trapped. It was easy enough for him to make some flying birds or something to reap some benefits. Even if these people were not as good as old man Dong, they should not be too far off. Why did they look like they had never seen anything good before? It was baffling. The miracle healing medicine that Wu Laoer had given him was enough to exchange for resources that these people would never be able to finish in their entire lives. As if noticing Yun Yang's confusion, Su Yunshui smiled wryly and said, "Young friend, you might not know this, but we seem to be carefree and do as we please, but ever since we came to this realm, it's as if we've been shackled, unable to be tainted by the mundane world. The 9 stars aligned formation on this mountain requires the 9 of us to work together to form an indestructible formation against the demon race. Once any one of us is missing, the formation will be broken. The demon clan has been paying attention to us at all times, waiting for the day when we are short of people. When that day comes, they will be able to sense it immediately and attack us with all their strength. They won't give us any chance to make up for it. Ever since we came up, we didn't dare to take even half a step away. We didn't dare to slack off for even a moment. The desire for good food is just a trivial matter. If we implicate the lives of our brothers because of this, or even bring disaster to the common people of the world, then even if we are smashed to pieces, we will not be able to absolve ourselves from the blame." An indescribable loneliness flashed across Su Yunshui's thin face. He said lightly, "After so many years, the things that we brought over in the past have been eaten up. The tea leaves have been cut off for who knows how many years. With our cultivation base, it's fine even if we don't eat or drink. It's just that after not eating or drinking for so many years, we actually have a subtle feeling that we're no longer human. That feeling is really awkward." On the other side, Boss Wu chuckled bitterly as well. As for the mimicry of spiritual qi, it's just a side effect of a higher cultivation base. It's not about the mundane world. We only want the mundane world, nothing else. Yin Yang was shaken as he murmured, "I see. This junior understands now." In his heart, there were 2 sentences echoing. The desire for good food is just a trivial matter. If we implicate the lives of our brothers because of this, or even bring disaster to the common people of the world, then even if we are smashed to pieces, we will not be able to absolve ourselves from the blame. It's not about the mundane world. What we want is only worldly possessions, and nothing else. He could not help but feel respect for them. What a group of respectable people they were. "Yes, I have all of them here." Yin Yang waved his hand and hundreds of pots of wine appeared on the ground. This was all that the god of wine, Feng Xiang, had in stock. Yin Yang only had these with him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he did not keep a single pot for himself and took them all out. Seeing the fine wine in front of them, the crowd cheered for a long time. Then, Yin Yang took out bags of tea leaves. These tea leaves were of different types, adding up to dozens of caddies, all that he had in stock. Tea leaves could not be compared to fine wine. Yin Yang did not bring a lot with him, only bringing some with him out of habit for emergencies. These tea leaves were the premium teas given by the General Commerce League when they were in contact. They were the best of the time, none of them ordinary. However, Yin Yang was fond of wine but not tea. He had almost never used them, but he did not expect to use them here. Since there were rare fine wine and premium teas, the matching wine and tea set was naturally provided as well. These alone filled up more than half of the space in the cave. However, it was a little difficult to request more. Fruits and vegetables were the most common and easily obtainable items in the mortal world, but here, they were the rarest. Although Emmy could hasten the growth of all spiritual plants, it still needed seeds. Yin Yang did not lack any seeds or sprouts of any spiritual plants, but he did not have any seeds of ordinary fruits and vegetables. He really did not have any. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice, and Emmy could not nurture a plant without seeds. Little friend, there's no need to feel troubled. Now that we have tea and wine, we're already satisfied. The few old men all had faces full of joy and joy. The dishes that go with the wine are easy to discuss on our side. Wu Lao Er rushed out and searched the mountain wall for a while. Then, he returned with a few snow lotuses and ginsengs. It's better than nothing to go with the wine. There's more or less the taste of the leaves. Yin Yang patted his head and said, if this can be made do, I have quite a lot here. As he spoke, he had already spoken to Emmy. A certain someone had grabbed 70 to 80 stalks from the space. There were plentiful cinnabar fruits, huge sealworts, and various fragrant flowers and fruits of various colors. All of them were rare treasures of heaven and earth, aged spiritual plants and fruits. The elders who witnessed the scene widened their eyes in shock. This child's spatial ring was huge, and, young friend, is your spatial ring a grotto treasure? It can actually maintain the vitality of spiritual plants? Fan Yinbang asked curiously. How rare is a grotto treasure? I don't have that kind of luck. These are just the ones I passed by Tian Fa on my way here. Yin Yang smiled. I see. The elders did not doubt Yin Yang's words at all. They knew about the existence of Tian Fa Holy Land even if others did not. Yin Yang's cultivation base was enough for him to come and go as he pleased in the outskirts of the land of Tian Fa. It was not surprising that he could collect these spiritual plants and fruits. How rare. Su Yunshui's eyes shone. Today is the most sumptuous meal I've had in these thousands of years. Chapter 1235. Everyone worked together. One person waved his hand, and the spiritual qi in the air immediately condensed into spiritual liquid, which washed all the heavenly treasures, spiritual plants, and spiritual fruits. They also washed all the pots and pans, and then Shi Qingshan began to show off his skills. Squeeze this fruit and use its juice. Not only does it taste the same as the oil used in stir-frying, it's even more fragrant. Remove the spiritual qi from the spiritual herb and ferment it to make vinegar. Old Su, use your pure yang mystical qi to roast this fruit dry and grind it into powder. It's the best to make salt, this old man will be the chef. Today, I'll give all of you a small test. You're all in for a treat today. Shi Qingshan held the large wok and smiled in satisfaction. Yin Yang stared dumbfoundedly. The heaven and earth treasures that could be auctioned off at a sky-high price outside were being fried in the wok by these old men. The essence of the heaven and earth treasures were all removed and not used. Instead, it was the dregs that were put to great use. Would anyone believe such a thing? The corners of Yun Yang's lips were already twitching, but what he saw next was even more shocking. Other than the main effect of rapidly recovering one's energy and increasing mystical qi, the cinnabar fruit was also a fruit that tasted good and had a great texture. However, Old Man Su had not only extracted the juice from it, but had also roasted it dry and turned it into granules that were similar to white sugar to be used as seasoning. Was this really appropriate? There was also the Tian Nan Teng. Yin Yang knew that it was a highly poisonous item. It was a spiritual herb that Yun Yang had casually brought out earlier. According to Yun Yang's knowledge, a drop of this thing's juice could poison 10 cows to death, but when the old men saw it, they didn't care at all. They washed it, broke it up, and put it into their mouths to chew. They were all grinning from ear to ear and kept praising, "It's really refreshing." Yin Yang was shocked. "This thing is poisonous." The few old men rolled their eyes. "How rare is it? Who doesn't know that it's poisonous? It can't be eaten if it's poisonous. This crunchy texture is even better than eating cucumbers. It's so satisfying." They ignored Yun Yang and continued munching with a satisfied expression. Yin Yang was speechless. Second Elder Wu laughed as he chewed. "Kid, you're a holy venerable, so your knowledge is still shallow. Which one of us old things isn't immune to all poisons? If there's a poison in this world that can send them away, they might even thank us again and again." Yin Yang was speechless for a good while. He Buyu, who was fighting outside, yelled, "All of you, please watch your mouths. Don't eat all of them. Leave some for me." Fan Yinbang laughed heartily. "I won't leave any for you. Everyone, hurry up. How can we take the initiative to share such a good thing? He Buyu, if you want to eat, then hurry up and come in." He Buyu was enraged. "I'm fighting for my life out there, and you don't even leave me anything to eat? This is too much. Don't you have any shame?" Fan Yinbang snorted, "Bullsh*t, if I were outside right now, would you stay for me? It's been thousands of years since I've had such a good meal. Who would care about who? That person must be a fool." He Buyu yelled, "Are we still brothers? Can we still be alone?" The 8 people inside shouted in unison, "We'll eat it for you." He Buyu was enraged, but he could be heard saying from outside, "Nine-tailed, leave first. How about you come back after I've had my meal?" A sharp voice came from outside, like the clanging of steel. "He Buyu, you're not a son. How dare you chase me away when you're having a meal? How can you say that?" He Buyu retorted angrily, "What do you mean then? Do you want to fight me to the end? What this king means is, this king also wants to eat." He Buyu said, "All right, but you guys can't come and make trouble when I'm having a meal." "Of course." Then, the sounds of fighting outside disappeared. He Buyu, who was dressed in white, walked in with a big fox with golden fur. It had a human head and a fox body, with 9 tails. The fox's head was that of a handsome middle-aged man. As soon as he walked into the cave, his figure shook and transformed into a middle-aged man in a golden robe and a crown on his head. He walked in slowly and said with a smile, "Greetings, everyone. Since there's good food here, let's not fight for now." The 8 people cursed at the same time, "Damn it, what are you doing here, you coquettish fox? It's not easy for us to get something to eat. You're a fox, not a dog. Why is your nose so sensitive? Get out of here, there's no place for you here." The middle-aged man touched his nose and smiled bitterly, "You're all useless. You're from the mysterious universe, you should be used to eating these things. I'm afraid you're already sick of them. But I've only eaten them a few times in my life. Now, I'm using a temporary truce as a condition to have a meal with you, and you're not happy?" Boss Wu laughed and said, "Let the fox eat some, it'll be my farewell meal." The Fox King was furious when he heard that. He rolled his eyes and said, "Since it's my last meal, I'll have to eat more. I'll eat until I'm full. Let me say this first, I want to take away 10 caddies of these tea leaves." And these wine, I want to take away 50 jars. The 9 people were furious at the same time. Bastard, you're dreaming. You're too much. Be careful, the 9 of us will kill you right here in this cave. The Fox King snorted and said, as long as you have the ability to do so, just do it. But I have to say this first, once we start fighting, I'll definitely destroy all these wine and tea leaves. Do you think I don't dare? He crossed his arms and snorted, even if you hide these things in your spatial rings. Do you think I can destroy them all? The 9 people were dumbfounded. After a long time, Hibuyu cursed, damn it. You win. These 9 people were very clear in their hearts that the cultivation of this Fox King before them was no joke. He had already reached the highest realm of the 9-tailed fox clan. If the 9 of them joined forces to surround and defeat him, it would be a piece of cake. However, if they were to talk about killing him, it would be impossible. The 9-tailed fox clan's supernatural power was extremely abnormal. As long as there was a single fox hair left undamaged, it could be used to resurrect, and its combat power would not be affected at all. In other words, he had the capital to risk his life. Hibuyu said, no matter what, we can't let you take it away just like that. We've allowed you to eat, but that's on the premise of a temporary truce. After this meal, we'll decide the winner with a bet. 9 people from your side, and 9 people from my side. We'll bet on who wins and who loses. 1 win, 1 jar of wine. 2 wins, 1 jar of wine, 1 cup of tea. How about it? Everyone responded, I've nothing better to do, so I'll beat the kids on a cloudy day. It's the 4th update today. Please subscribe. Chapter 1236. The Fox King rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm the Bear King? 1 pot for 1 win? I don't dare. If you don't fight, I'll do it now. Then 10 pots for 1 round. 2 caddies of tea. Hibuyu quickly changed his strategy. How about we fight for a full month? Let's draw lots. A fight between gentlemen is only about victory and defeat, not life and death. The Fox King frowned and said, all right, it's settled. But after today's meal, I have to take 2 caddies of tea and 20 pots of wine. This is my bottom line. Otherwise, we'll split and no one can enjoy it alone. The 9 men looked at each other and sighed dejectedly. Very well. The Fox King laughed heartily and sat down cross-legged without any reservations. He casually plucked a poisonous vine and placed it into his mouth to chew. He sighed and said, in your words, it's really King refreshing. Yin Yang was dumbstruck watching from the side. These people had been fighting with the demon race here for thousands of years, and they had actually become friends? It seemed like this was not the first time. Who is this young fellow? The Fox King squinted his eyes at Yin Yang and praised, you humans are indeed full of talents. This young fellow is only 23.5 years old at most, but he's already reached the level of a 2nd-level Supreme Saint. This is the first time I've seen such a genius. Hibuyu's face was filled with a comforting expression. Wu-ol Air said coldly, this is the first time I've seen it. That's just because you demons are useless. Each of you stinks, what's the point of cultivating? Why don't you just surrender? The Fox King glanced at him and said indifferently, don't talk to me if you don't have a ***. Wu-ol Air was enraged and was about to stand up. The others quickly pulled him back. Brother, you have it, we all know you have it. Don't be provoked by him, he's doing it on purpose. If you don't believe me, take off your pants and let him see. The group laughed. Shi Qingshan, who was preparing the dishes, had already begun to emit a rich aroma. After a while, plates of appetizing stir-fried dishes, stir-fried heaven and earth treasures, were served. Deep-fried snow ginseng. Vine-exploding seedlings. Silk sealwort. Stir-fried heaven palace lotus. 7-leaf lotus choking geocentric seeds. Polygonum multiflorum heart cold mixed with Shenshin heart. If this table of dishes were to be moved out, just the cost alone would be enough to buy a country, and there would even be some surplus. What was even more awesome was that most of these heavenly treasures had lost their essence. Come, try this. Does it taste like cabbage? Try this. Does it taste like a potato? Here, this is the method of making vinegar yam tablets. Isn't it crisper? Why does this look like stir-fried mung bean sprouts? It's exactly the same. The Fox King laughed heartily and ate heartily. The jars of wine had already been opened. This was the work of the god of wine. Naturally, it was extraordinary and had become a masterpiece. Everyone was beaming with joy as they drank. Only the Fox King seemed to be deep in thought after drinking a bowl and said, "This wine. I seem to have drunk it somewhere before." When the others heard this, they didn't pay much attention to it. All of them were people of great status, and they'd tasted countless superb wines in the past. Although the wine god's legacy could be said to be superb, to people like them who hadn't tasted wine for far too long, they couldn't tell the difference. Yin Yang, however, felt a jolt in his heart. He lifted his head abruptly and asked, "This wine? Lord Fox King has drunk it before?" The Fox King's calm and gentle gaze focused on Yin Yang's face as he said faintly, "This young friend seems to value this wine very much?" Yin Yang heaved a long sigh and said, "To be honest, this wine was brewed by an elder in my family. This junior has never really seen this elder before. I only obtained 1,000 jars of wine from him in the family storage by chance. The elders in my family say that it's the best wine in the world, but this junior has never heard of any rumors about it despite traveling to many places." Yin Yang smiled sheepishly and said, "If the Fox King has really drunk this wine, then..." His words were eloquent and emotional. He Buyu and the others did not doubt him at all as they said, "I see. Although we haven't drunk wine for a long time, we can still tell a thing or two about the taste of good wine. This wine of yours is exquisite. We've never seen anything like it in our lives. It turns out that it's your ancestral legacy. We're greatly indebted to you." Unexpectedly, the Fox King's gaze was fixed on Yin Yang's face as he said indifferently, "Why are you cultivating the art of frozen heart when you speak?" As soon as the nine-tailed Fox King spoke these words, everyone was stunned in unison. Most of the elders' attention was on the delicacy before them. The remaining small portion of their attention was on guarding against the Fox King's sudden outburst. They really did not have the slightest spare for Yin Yang, so they were slightly taken aback when they heard the question. Yin Yang, on the other hand, was unfazed as he said, "The Fox King isn't one of my clansmen. Our standpoints are different and it's our first meeting. This junior has asked mainly because I'm concerned about my ancestors' news. There's no other intention. However, this junior's inner hostility still exists. It's a joyous truce now. If I were to reveal it, it'll only upset the Fox King and add to the uncertainty. I didn't expect the Fox King to be so sensitive. This junior has tried his best to restrain himself, but you've still sensed it." Yin Yang paused and said, "Speaking of which, this is Junior's petty heart. Seniors have fought with the Fox King for so many years, we've long appreciated each other and know each other's guts. As the saying goes, heroes cherish heroes, the enemy's hero is the true enemy. However, since the Fox King has been invited by the seniors, the other side must be an honorable senior as well. No matter what, I, Yin Yang, can't give the Fox King the same respect as the seniors. Please forgive me, Fox King. Therefore, it's not just today. Even if we meet again in the future, this junior will still cultivate the art of frozen heart to be safe when I meet the seniors." Yin Yang spoke neither humbly nor haughtily. These words made the 9 old men very happy, and they beamed with joy, as if they were comforted by their old age. He Buyu guffawed. "Fox King, you've always been sharp with your words. You thought you've gotten a handle on your words just now, but now you know that you've lost. I'm not afraid to tell you that this is the bound of Universe's men. If the demon race wants to step into the bound of Universe, the first thing you'll have to face is the iron bones of the bound of Universe's men." Yin Yang chuckled and said, "Yin Yang may be a bound of Universe's man, but he's only at the bottom of the bound of universe's men. There was no other expression on the Fox King's gentle face as he said faintly, a grain of rice? If there are more than 10 young men like you in the bound of universe, the demon realm will really have no hope. Sigh. I've only asked why you're cultivating the art of frozen heart. Why do you have to explain it in such a long way? Don't tell me you have a guilty conscience. Chapter 1237. Yin Yang smiled faintly and said, "There's no such thing as a guilty conscience, it's the truth. I thank the Fox King for your praise, but there are many youths like Yin Yang in the bound of universe. We'll know when we meet. I only hope that when it's my turn to guard the bloody Soul Mountain, I can still have an opponent like the Fox King as my enemy." "Oh?" the Fox King asked. Yin Yang said seriously, "Humans have their own heroes. I believe the demonic race has their own legends too. There's no contradiction between heroes and heroes, but we all have our own standpoints after all. That's all. Seniors have fought and died for the sake of their descendants. Tens of thousands of years have passed like a day. One wants to defend, to protect the peace and happiness behind, while the other wants to come and expand his territory, to give the younger generation a vast world. Their feelings are the same, what's the difference? Between martial artists, life and death hangs by a hair's breadth, especially in a war that involves one's standpoints. It's rare to be merciful, but in private, it's not impossible to be friends. After all, the person who understands you the most is often not a friend, but an old enemy. Just like the 10 seniors sitting here drinking wine today. To be honest, this is the moment that moves and makes this junior envious." Yin Yang heaved a long sigh and said slowly, "Today we drink together, tomorrow we fight on the battlefield, today we call each other bosom friends, tomorrow we face each other with saber and sword. I die with no regrets, I live with no regrets, I die with no regrets. The grudges of this life have been settled, today's meeting is not a waste." He said with a sigh, "At least in my opinion, this is the highest realm of a martial artist. The Demon King is worthy of the demonic race, and the human seniors are worthy of the bound of universe. What's the difference between us?" His words caused everyone present to fall into deep thought, and their faces were filled with brilliance. Boss Wu raised his cup in thought and murmured, "The highest realm of a martial artist? Ha ha ha." The Fox King looked at Yun Yang with a solemn gaze for a long time before he suddenly smiled and said, "You're a good child, not bad at all." Yun Yang replied humbly, "This is the glory that the seniors have spent their entire lives writing. It's not something that this junior can boast about. Of course, I, Yun Yang, respect my human seniors, but towards the Fox King and the other demonic seniors, even if there's still a day when we have to fight to the death, I still have respect in my heart." He sighed with emotion. "At the very least, with the cultivation of seniors, you've long since been able to move unhindered through the world. No matter how you enjoy life, it's all easy, and you can do as you please. But the choice of our seniors is to willingly spend the rest of their lives on this blood soul mountain. This is already worthy of everyone's respect, and is worthy of the respect of all demon clans. Who says that there are no heroes in the outsiders?" Everyone present, including the Fox King, nodded slightly. Yun Yang's words had spoken their minds. What she did not know was that Yun Yang was secretly wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, thinking that he had finally managed to deceive her about the art of frozen heart. Sure enough, everyone liked flattery. No matter how powerful an expert was, he would still have to submit under the pressure of a high hat. He. With Yun Yang's greeting, the 10 of them seemed to be in high spirits as they drank. The Fox King did not answer Yun Yang's question from the beginning to the end. Yun Yang was not anxious about it, nor did he ask further. He listened to the 9 humans and the Demon King's conversation with a respectful smile. They were indeed imaginative, their topics were varied and endless. At this moment, Kibuyu and the others were still talking about the strange happenings of the human race, but in the next moment, it was the Fox King's turn to talk about the demon race's abyss. It was shocking and awe-inspiring, however, as Yun Yang listened to them, he was acutely aware that although these people spoke a lot and the content was extensive and all-encompassing, neither He Buyu, Wu Lauer, nor the Fox King mentioned a single word about the accumulation of their combat power or the internal situation. Even though the Fox King had complained about the harsh environment of the demon race, when it came to the advantages and disadvantages of the demon race itself, he did not mention a single word about it. Half drunk, the Fox King patted the mud seal with a pot of wine in his arms and said with a sigh, "Actually, the demon race and humans are really just a matter of perspective. In our understanding, the demon clan eating humans is a matter of course. Humans are just a type of food in this world. Humans, however, have a completely different understanding of this, because this idea is treacherous. It's also because of this fundamental difference that there's no possibility for humans and the demon race to coexist peacefully. Therefore, in the end, this continent can only be ruled by the party that survives. Those of us who can still sit together and drink and chat now, when the time comes to an irreconcilable point, either I die in your hands or you all die in mine." Speaking up to here, the Fox King smiled and said, "But if that time really comes, when one of us really becomes the ruler of this continent, if there are any of us alive, what should we do?" He Buyu and the others thought about it, but their expressions changed in unison. "When that time comes and all our old opponents are dead, we'll be the only ones left in this world. What are we going to do then? Continue to cultivate? What's the point of cultivation? Longevity? What's the point of longevity? Enjoyment? If we want to enjoy, what can't we enjoy now? But if it's to fight, who will we fight with? After these old opponents are gone, even if there's a successor with a cultivation base, can we put down our pride and fight them? Or even fight to the death? Drink? Taste delicacies? Enjoy life? Sightseeing?" Intentionally or unintentionally talking about this topic, these 10 experts who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation in the world all fell into a state of confusion. They were stunned. Yin Yang, who was standing aside, was speechless. After a while, seeing that everyone was still silent, he finally could not help but say, "It looks like after drinking, no matter how intelligent or far-sighted one is, or how high one's cultivation base is, one's brain is no longer as sharp as before." "What do you mean?" The 10 men turned to look at him simultaneously, all of them drunk. Yin Yang was exasperated as he said, "What all of you are thinking about now, at least in this junior's opinion, is very senseless." The 10 men snorted in unison, their expressions unfriendly. What did you say?" "First, there's a huge mistake in Senior Fox King's argument. Even if the final battle between both sides is decided, and one side dominates the bound of universe, the other side can't be completely annihilated. No matter how severe the casualties are, there'll always be embers to pass on the torch. Second, for seniors with your cultivation base, even if you intervene in the final battle and the continent is ruled by the opposing side, the possibility of you dying in the battle is still very small. The biggest possibility is that you'll lead your clansmen to hide and wait for the day to rise again. Therefore, your old opponents won't die at all, at least not all of them. By then, even if you're lonely, I'm afraid it'll be a very difficult thing, because in the days to come, you'll have to look for your old opponent's whereabouts as your life goal." Yin Yang rolled his eyes speechlessly. "Thirdly, with the Crimson Soul Mountain separating the two worlds, it'll be very difficult for one side to completely rule the continent for a very long time. Perhaps I should put it this way. Although all of you have a long life and enjoy longevity, you may not be able to see that day come in your lifetime." Yin Yang raised his cup and smiled. In conclusion, instead of worrying about having no opponents at that time, it's better to think of a way now and get rid of your opponents first. Who knows, it'll be lonely at the top with an invincible expert. His words rendered the 10 men speechless on the spot. After a long moment of silence, they burst into laughter. The solemn atmosphere from before was no more, replaced by undulating guffaws. Amidst the laughter, the Fox King's gaze regained its clarity as he said with a smile, "Actually, in this life, let's just treat it as a few old friends accompanying and relaxing every day. We're also using each other to kill time." He turned to look at Yun Yang, the admiration in his eyes growing stronger as he said, "Child, I admire you more and more now. I can answer your question for you." Yin Yang replied excitedly, "Thank you, Senior Fox King." The Fox King nodded thoughtfully and said, "Of course, the taste of this wine is superb, but once it's opened, the smell of alcohol soars into the sky, turning into the auspicious image of a dragon and phoenix that lingers for a long time. This is the main reason why I have such a deep impression. I've drunk more than 10 pots of this wine." Yin Yang asked, "May I ask, Senior, how many years ago was that?" The Fox King thought about it and said uncertainly, "About 700 to 800 years? Or perhaps 1,000 years? Whether it's human or demon, there's hardly anything worth remembering after living in this world for a long time. I really can't remember it, I'm just being vague." Yin Yang frowned. Of course this junior doesn't doubt Senior's words, but does Senior still have any impression of who brewed this wine? The Fox King said, "I'm not a wine king. That wine was only a gift from the Monkey King. It's unique, that's why I have some impression of it. Why would this king be interested in finding out who brewed it?" The Monkey King, huh? Yin Yang was deep in thought. The god of wine, Feng Xianga, was one of Mr. Nian's incarnations, but the real god of wine might not be Mr. Nian. Perhaps the god of wine had fallen for some reason and Mr. Nian had borrowed his identity. Yin Yang had long guessed this, but he had never had any proof. Initially, this had nothing to do with the grand scheme of things, but now that he had accidentally formed a connection with the demon race, it was an unexpected gain for Yin Yang. At that moment, he had almost lost his composure and had to use the art of frozen heart to calm himself down. Could it be that the Four Seasons Tower was related to the demon race? Yin Yang could not help but be worried about his emotions. If so, this matter would be very complicated. Chapter 1238. Seeing the worry on Yin Yang's face, He comforted him, "Young Yun, you don't have to worry. You're now the leader of the human celestial luck banner. Even if your ancestor had connections with the demon race, it has nothing to do with you. You said it yourself, your ancestor was famous for his wine. Maybe it was his wine that accidentally flowed to the demon race. It's understandable." The others agreed, "That's right. That should be the case. It's understandable." Su Yunshui snorted coldly. "So what if it's wine for the demon race? What does it have to do with you? Don't worry, I'll kill whoever dares to trouble you." Yin Yang smiled bitterly while rubbing his nose. "Thank you for your comfort, seniors, but this junior isn't worried about this. My worry is mainly because my family's winemaking skill has been passed down for nearly 10,000 years. Since my ancestors' whereabouts were unknown, this skill has been lost. Back then, the elders in the family passed it down from generation to generation to find my ancestors' skill. Even if the descendants could no longer make a living from it, they wanted to keep this skill in the family and pass it on without interruption. The family's skill that my family relied on for survival was lost in one day. Generations of my ancestors passed away with regret. As a descendant, of course, I have the heart to make up for it." Yin Yang smiled bitterly. "Before this, I've inquired about the more famous intelligence organizations in the bound of universe, but I didn't get any useful information. I've come to the Crimson Soul Mountain this time to see the true face of the Holy War, and also to see if there's any way to go to the demon race and collect some wine soul grass. I'll try to restore this family skill. It's hard to find a lost skill, but it's not impossible to find another way to recover the old wine soul grass." More than 3 people spoke one after another. "Yes, it's the wine soul grass." Yin Yang said, "Other than being brewed, the wine soul grass has no other use and has nothing to do with cultivation. It's black when it's born and turns dark green when it's ripe. It bears fruit once every 3 years and the fruits it bears are only the size of a finger. There are 9 fruits in each cluster, but the juice in these 9 fruits is no different from natural wine. Perhaps this item has other names, but, in our family, it's called the wine soul grass. However, there's no such herb in the bound of universe. I've offered a bounty in the entire bound of universe, but I couldn't find it. The 10 of them came to a sudden realization at the same time. So that's how it is. You've really put in a lot of effort. Yin Yang looked at the Fox King with a hopeful gaze. Lord Fox King, may I ask if you've seen this grass before? The Fox King pondered for a long time and said, no. I have no impression at all. You also said that this thing is useless for cultivation. Why would we pay attention to this thing? Second brother Wu stroked his chin and said, so the main reason you came to the Blood Soul Mountain this time is actually for this? Yin Yang said with some embarrassment, it should be said that it's half and half. Of course, there's no shortage of wanting to go and see the demon race's strength and have a clearer understanding of my own strength. But it's not convenient to say this in front of Lord Fox King. The Fox King laughed involuntarily and said, this is the truth. Although your cultivation base is not weak, if you enter the demon plane alone, it's still a matter of death, not to mention looking for the wine soul grass. It's a waste of time and effort, it's not something that can be found overnight. It's extremely dangerous, old brother Wu said, but if there's the Fox King's help, won't Young Yin be able to go unhindered? The Fox King rolled his eyes and said, nonsense, why should I help a human? This brat keeps talking about his standpoint and has already made it clear that he wants to destroy the demon race. If I help him, won't I be looking for trouble and hastening my own decline? Yin Yang said boldly, I don't need Senior Fox King's help in this matter. If I implicate Senior Fox King, it'll be my fault instead. An expert like Senior Fox King will only die a worthy death if he falls on the battlefield. No matter what, I don't want him to be like the previous 9 Lives Cat King. Seniors don't have to worry too much, I have my own plans. The Fox King's expression turned dangerous as he said in a strange tone, young fellow, you're quite knowledgeable. You actually know about the case of my clan's 9 Lives Cat King? Yin Yang laughed, Senior, you must be joking. Today's main point is to drink and eat, there's no need to talk about such things that spoil the mood. The Fox King snorted, his eyes straightening as he said with some hostility, young fellow, you don't have any good intentions. You want to provoke me to help you enter the demon plane, can't I really see through it? Yin Yang smiled, it's true that this junior is showing off in front of an expert, but it's also expected that Senior Fox King won't fall for it. The Fox King said faintly, young fellow, I'll make it so that you can't guess it. As he spoke, he slapped a token on the table and said, as long as this 9-tailed token is still in your hands, you can do whatever you want in the entire demon plane. I'll let you see this king's power. Yin Yang coughed and quickly kept the 9-tailed token away, saying, thank you, Senior Fox King, for your righteousness. This junior thanks you in advance. He kept it away so quickly that everyone was taken aback for a moment before they burst out laughing. Fox King, you old fellow who prides himself on being cunning has fallen for it. Old Wu's second guffawed. However, he was slapped on the head by Boss Wu. Bastard, don't speak if you don't understand. If it weren't for this young fellow's whine, would the Fox King have been provoked? This is the Fox King not wanting to owe karma, so he's just helping out by being provoked. What do you know? The Fox King guffawed and said, that's right. The host of today's banquet was brought by this young fellow. Your clan has eaten and drunk, but it's a family matter. As an uninvited guest, I can't drink this young one's wine and food for nothing. Even if he didn't provoke me, I'd still protect him. After this, we don't owe each other anything. The Fox King said solemnly. Yin Yang said quietly, very well, that's how it should be. Actually, Yin Yang was well aware of it. The word karma was incomparably mysterious. Ordinary people or low-level martial artists might have some ungrateful behavior, or if they owed something, then they owed it. They would not care about the so-called karma, because they would not have any profound state of mind. However, the higher the cultivation base, the more they would care about this. Especially when one had reached the pinnacle of the Fox King's cultivation base, they would never owe karma. This was because a debt of karma could lead to serious consequences. Especially in the case of some heart-related demons, a lifetime's experience might even be replayed in front of the demon in the mind. Once there was a debt and a flaw in the state of mind, the demon in the heart would take advantage of the weakness and cause a lifetime of regret. When one had reached a certain level, the cultivation was actually a heart that was clear and pure. Therefore, the higher one's status and cultivation base, the less one would owe others anything. Once a debt was owed, one had to settle it as soon as possible to ensure a clear and flawless state of mind. Chapter 1239. In just a few words, the matter of Yin-Yang entering the demonic race had been settled. Then, Yin-Yang realized that his trip to the demonic race had paved the way for him. As long as he did not purposely seek death, this move would be as stable as a mountain, no longer as dangerous as he had expected. He was struck by lightning from the heavens and narrowly escaped death. After escaping death from a great calamity, his luck immediately turned to joy. This luck was simply boundlessly high. Good wine, really good wine. The Fox King finished half a pot of wine and guffawed. You bunch of old fellows are really pitiful. You've sacrificed so much for the bound of universe's human race, but you can't even get some supplies. You're eating and drinking every day. The next time I come, I'll bring some specialties from our side. Let's have a good fight and have a good drink. Boss Wu's eyes shone. Words are spoken, it's a deal. The Fox King rolled his eyes and said, of course it's a deal. Sigh, I'm not afraid to tell you old fellows that if it weren't for the fact that there are very few people who can drink with me in the 10,000 demon plane and make me feel comfortable drinking with them, how could my good stuff fall into your hands? Hearing the words enemies, the crowd roared with laughter, not at all offended. Hibuyu laughed bleakly and said, that's right. At our level, there aren't many people who can get together to drink. So what if we're enemies? As long as we're in the right mood and treat each other with sincerity, we can only get drunk together. Treat each other with sincerity, get drunk together. The Fox King laughed maniacally. If one day, I really die in the hands of any of you, that would be the happiest thing in my life. I wouldn't have wasted this life. Before he finished his sentence, he staggered 2 steps and managed to steady himself by leaning against the wall. He waved his hand weakly and said, I'm so drunk that I want to sleep. Sleep, King sleep first. He actually leaned against the wall and started snoring, as if he had never thought that this was the enemy's territory and that he was surrounded by many of his greatest enemies. He did not have to worry about being killed in his sleep, so he slept peacefully and comfortably. Yin-Yang was taken aback by what he saw. It was another eye-opener for him. Wasn't the Fox King a little too ambitious? Even if they treated each other with sincerity, wasn't this a little too much? Of course he is. He has the ability to do so. Do you think you can kill him now? Looking at Yin-Yang's shocked expression, second brother Wu smiled bitterly. Impossible. Sigh, what's bothering me now is that he'll inevitably leave behind a foul smell when he lies here. I'll have to worry about it for a few days. Coquettish fox, you really deserve your reputation. Fox King said in a daze, second brother Wu, if you keep talking nonsense, do you believe that I won't leave here? I was wrong. Please be magnanimous, don't lower yourself to my level. Wu Ol Second's face was full of bitterness as he humbled himself, making Yin-Yang even more dizzy. The way these old fellows get along with each other is really hard to fathom. However, the only reply he got was a series of snoring sounds. I say, seniors, don't you suspect me at all? After the Fox King had fallen asleep, Yin-Yang, who was still puzzled about the matter, finally asked. Isn't your background already clear to me? The few old men were all grinning from ear to ear like a group of old foxes who had just eaten a chick. How is it clear? Yin-Yang was puzzled. I'm a stowaway, my background is unknown, and my motive is even more so. Just your identity as the leader and founder of the Celestial Luck Banner is enough. Boss Wu's eyes were filled with kindness as he looked at Yin-Yang, while the rest of the group was laughing, overjoyed. It was hard to tell if they had always been this jovial, or if Yun Yang's arrival had triggered the laughter that had been accumulated over the years. These people were all old and experienced. Although each of them seemed to be straightforward and didn't seem to have any schemes, in reality, they were just too lazy to scheme. If they really wanted to scheme, each of their hearts were as clear as a mirror and extremely transparent. Whether a person was good or bad, or how his nature was, as long as these old fellows interacted with him, they could see through him in at most an hour. Even if Yun Yang's intelligence was superior, he could not escape the eyes of these old fellows when he was not on guard. At least, in the eyes of these old fellows, Yun Yang was a promising talent with a promising future. In old Wu's words, this child could not be that bad no matter how bad he was. Especially after the matter of cooking with the heaven and earth treasures, the 9 old fellows' recognition of Yun Yang was unprecedented. It was just a meal and a few dishes, but he had used up to 100 kinds of heaven and earth treasures in one go. Every single stalk was a priceless treasure. It could be said that if these hundreds of heavenly treasures were exchanged for wealth and resources, it would be more than enough to support any genius from the Enlightenment stage to the Saint King stage. Moreover, it would be the kind that could be developed in an extremely short period of time, and the foundation would be exceptionally solid, without any hidden dangers. Any stalk of spiritual plant, spiritual root, or spiritual seedling might not even be seen by an ordinary family in their lifetime, let alone possessing such exquisite goods. What was more, they did not enjoy it in the usual sense. Almost all the essences of the ingredients had been removed, only taking the parts that could be used as delicacies. Almost all of them were dregs. Eating them was no different from cultivation, only for the sake of satisfying one's appetite. In spite of this, Yun Yang generously took them out and allowed them to be trampled on just to admire the old seniors who had guarded the Bloody Soul Mountain for tens of thousands of years. He had no complaints, be it before or after. Just this generosity, this boldness, and this temperament were not something an ordinary person could possess. If they were in Yun Yang's shoes, none of them would have such a temperament at his age. Just based on this, the old fellows were willing to help him. Moreover, it was not a big deal to really go to the demon race's side. Their only purpose of guarding here was to prevent the demon race from coming over. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, even if he went to the demon realm, as long as he did not commit himself to courting death, he had a great chance. Senior, may I ask what level this Fox King's cultivation base has reached? Compared to the seniors, which one is higher and which one is lower? Yun Yang was curious. The cultivation base of these old fellows was extraordinarily high. He could not see through any of them, even when his cultivation base had a significant breakthrough. The Fox King has reached the pinnacle of cultivation in this world, the level of a saint. He Buyu said faintly, similar to this old man, a second-grade saint. Roughly on par. As for Wu Lauer and the others, the weakest among them is a fourth-grade Saint Venerable. 2 of them are half-step Saint Venerables. Fong Lingtian said. It's been an uncomfortable day today. I've been taking Chinese medicine for 2 weeks now. Since a few days ago, a layer of goosebumps has appeared all over my body. I didn't notice it, thinking it was a spring allergy. But since today, I've been itching endlessly. When I scratch with my hand, I've scratched a few, which scared me. I went to the hospital because of the Chinese medicine I've taken. My stomach is fine now, and I don't feel anything, but the eczema on my body has completely reappeared. I've taken 4 kinds of medicine and 2 kinds of ointment, applying one during the day and the other at night. Do you know what it feels like to be itchy to death and not be able to scratch it? I'm going crazy. Amp, GT. Chapter 1240. It was so itchy. He rubbed it with iodine. It was so itchy and painful, this feeling made him want to die. He didn't have any mood anymore. I am the Supreme is taking a day off today. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1241. Yin-Yang understood at once. It seemed that the 9 people in front of him were led by the East Celestial Palace's Hibuyu, who was guarding this pass. Hibuyu looked at Yin-Yang with an inexplicable expression and said, "You have the Fox King's token in the demonic realm. It should be able to protect your life. However, there is still something to consider, and that is, to guard your heart." Yin-Yang nodded. "Please enlighten me, Senior." The customs and practices of the demonic realm are very different from those of the human realm. The great cultivators of the demonic race often have the ability to change their forms and are best at bewitching people. Although your cultivation base is high, you are still a young man after all. Moreover, your vital yang energy has yet to be broken and you are full of vigor and vigor. You are most easily bewitched by beauty. You have to be especially careful about this. A single misstep can cause you to suffer for eternity. Be careful. Yin-Yang accepted it humbly. Yes. Hibuyu thought about it and still felt uneasy. "Young friend, if you don't mind, I can imprint an immovable foundation seal into your soul. It can ensure that you are not tempted by anything. Your heart will be as steady as a rock and as immovable as a mountain. It's even better than the spell of frozen heart." Yin-Yang thought about it and said, "There's no need for that. If I am tempted, my soul will be unstable when I return. Seniors can just kill me directly." This trip to the demonic realm is a cultivation experience for this junior. Only by experiencing it personally can it be considered a personal treasure. If I really can't make it through, then it's my fate and I have nothing to do with anyone. He smiled confidently. If you need to rely on others to protect you for everything, I believe seniors wouldn't have become peerless experts who can control the safety of the world. Hibuyu's eyes were filled with admiration as he said, "That's right. You have such a temperament. I am the one who worries too much." The other elders also showed admiration in their eyes. "That's good. Cultivators don't have so many concerns. If they are overcautious about everything in the world, how can they be decisive?" The Fox King slept for a full 6 hours. During these 6 hours, the other 9 elders gathered at the side to drink tea. They didn't even talk and were collectively silent. Looking at the rolling green tea leaves in their cups, each of them seemed to be deep in thought. The rising fragrance of the tea reminded them of something. All of their souls seemed to have gone far away, and their eyes were filled with boundless blankness. Yin-Yang felt a little embarrassed as he watched, saying in a low voice, "Seniors, why don't you go home and have a look when the next shift happens? Staying here will always make you feel lonely. It's true that it's lonely at the top, but it's too bleak and lonely." Su Yunshui chuckled and murmured, "Home? How could old farts like us have a home?" The others smiled bitterly at the same time. "Now, we are most envious of the Wu brothers and their entire family. After so many years, not only are their brothers and sisters still alive, but there are also more than 10 of them. Even their father and mother are still alive and living comfortably. That is truly a blessing." Big Brother Wu smiled sadly. "My parents are still alive, and they are living a good life. The Wu family is a big family, and it is a fact that we have a lot of people. There were 31 of us brothers and sisters. Now, there are 32 of us. Each of us has our own fate. Each of us has lived for a long time, and this is also a fact. During that period of time, we did enjoy all of your envy, and this is also a fact. However, great families have their own sorrows. There will always be those who are slightly less gifted. Starting from about 7,000 years ago, some of us brothers finally started to fall. Every few hundred years, we have to send one away. After another few hundred years, when the scars have slightly healed, we send another one away. You guys are done once and for all, there's only nostalgia and memories left, but we are destroyed again and again. Just 500 years ago, there were still 10 of us. Now, the 10th is lying on the bed. He's hanging on for more than 100 years, dying countless times, but we've all been saved. Do you know this feeling? King Hell, you've experienced it a few times and you're already feeling terrible. What about us, including our wives, sons, concubines, and grandchildren? Each of us has to go through it 1,000 times on average. No matter what happens to your descendants, they won't even blink. Our blood ties have faded, but we still have our brothers and sisters who are fighting for their lives. This old fart actually says that he's envious of us. Second elder Wu snorted angrily. Why don't we try swapping? Let's see if you can take a baby calling you brother. The other 8 elders were silent. Who would be happier? This was a difficult question to answer. Every family has its own problems. This was indeed a famous saying from ancient times, unchanging since ancient times. Yin Yang sighed and recited softly, everyone says that longevity is good, but I want to ask what's good about it. After 100 years of a young couple, who would look at them alone? Brotherly love is as vast as the mountains and seas, who would bear it once they die? Filial piety to their children and grandchildren, who would bury them when the soil is gone? Others reincarnate while I live forever, who knows loneliness? This is the ultimate state of longevity that the emperors, generals, and ministers yearn for. However, once one's state of mind is lost, it's no different from falling into the most torturous abyss of the human world. Yun Yang's words made the 9 wise elders fall into silence at the same time. Yun Yang's words were not wrong at all. It was the truth. In this world, no one could live without a partner, friends, brothers, lovers, children and grandchildren. However, everyone present was the kind of people who could live until all their partners died and still continue to live for many, many years. It could even be said that as long as they were not killed, they could live forever. Living forever in this world was not a form of torture. Take the 9 elders present for example. Their contributions to the human race were undeniable and undeniable, but it was not as if they had not absorbed a sense of duty from the heavy responsibility of protecting the human race. That was why their state of mind had never been dispirited. They were all sensible people, so no one spoke when their thoughts were clear. However, when they occasionally met the gazes of others, they vaguely cherished the moments just now. Right now, only this group of old brothers could still gather together, talk, reminisce about the past, and walk on together. They could no longer understand what the young people were talking about. It was also because of this that Yun Yang's presence was no longer as harmonious as before with the elder's aura. The atmosphere grew more and more oppressive. Just as the atmosphere reached its most oppressive and unbearable point, the Fox King opened his eyes abruptly, waking up coincidentally. A gleam of loneliness flashed across the Demon King's eyes before he chuckled. A bunch of old fellows are letting their imaginations run wild again. It's been so many years, every time I hear you talk about this topic, I feel like fighting to vent the anger in my heart. All of you are too senseless. What's the big deal about your little thoughts? At the very least, we won't die of old age in this lifetime. Isn't this already stronger than many people? The Fox King's words made the group burst into laughter again, the tense atmosphere dissipating. The Fox King turned to Yun Yang. Child, are you ready? Yun Yang lifted his head calmly. I've long been prepared. I'm just waiting for Senior's convenience. The Fox King's voice returned to its usual indifference. There's something you have to know. I've eaten your meal and drank your wine to repay your karma. The rise and fall of fate, it's all karma. I didn't mean to help you. Therefore, I can only send you in and protect you. However, when you go to the demonic realm, you won't get my help for anything related to it. You're not allowed to use my name to carry out any matters. Do you understand? There's one more point that needs to be made clear. In the demon plane, there are no less than 10 demon kings who are not beneath me in terms of cultivation base or status. You can't afford to offend any one of these existences. If you act recklessly and offend them, then it's beyond the scope of my protection. I can't possibly become enemies with my clansmen for you. The Fox King looked at Yun Yang, his gaze cautious. You have to be prepared. Even with a little bit of my protection, there's still no guarantee that you can come back alive. If you regret it now, it's still not too late. I can give you another benefit to make up for what you've done. Yin Yang smiled and stood up. Senior, let's go. The Fox King smiled. Good. Since that's the case, follow me. Before his words echoed in the air, the Fox King waved his sleeves. Yin Yang felt his vision blur. He was no longer in the cave but was high up in the sky. What greeted him was a blizzard of goose feathers. Looking around, it was a world of ice and snow. There was no other color between heaven and earth other than a vast expanse of silvery white. In this vast expanse of sky and earth, an immeasurable amount of demonic chi soared into the sky, filling the firmament. Amidst the whistling of the wind, Yin Yang felt himself being flung away by an immense force, his body tumbling in the air. The Fox King's voice rang in his ears at the same time, "Move freely from here. It's not convenient for me to leave the bloody soul's mouth for too long." The voice was still ringing in his ears, but the Fox King had already disappeared. Yin Yang mustered a mouthful of mystical chi and plummeted 40,000 feet down like a meteor. With a loud boom, he crashed into a pile of snow. When the snow shot up into the sky due to the impact, Yin Yang had already disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had melted from the fall. There was no trace of him at all. Somewhere far away, the Fox King frowned. He realized that Yin Yang's aura had truly vanished. Not only that, even the aura of the token he had given him had vanished as well. This young fellow is strange indeed. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. The Fox King shook his head indifferently and sped back to the bloody soul's mouth. To him, today's incident was only a cause and effect, nothing more. Now, the lake of his heart had regained its tranquility. No matter what happened to Yin Yang in the future, it was no longer his concern. What kind of storm could a mere token cause? It did not matter anymore. Besides, even if something did happen, who would dare implicate him? Chapter 1242. Yin Yang's actions were indeed intentional. He had purposely fallen from a high altitude, and the moment he landed on the snowy ground, he had immediately channeled the power of his water manifestation and turned himself into a snowflake, blending into the snow on the ground. Then, he had followed the wave of snow that had been splashed into the sky, drifting with the wind. He did not particularly care which direction he had been splashed in. It did not matter which direction he had been splashed in. As for the medallion that the Fox King could no longer sense, Yin Yang had sent it into his deific consciousness at once. The existence of the Fox King's medallion might be a form of insurance that could provide considerable help, but it was also equivalent to carrying the Fox King's deific consciousness with him. If the medallion was not targeted, the Fox King would be able to find him at once no matter where he went. Such a hidden threat was a safety taboo that had to be avoided. If he were to meet with danger, he would not give up on this aid. He could just take out the medallion immediately. However, if it was not necessary, Yin Yang was determined not to simply use this trump card that could be called a double-edged sword. The snowflake that Yin Yang had turned into drifted forward with the wind, taking in the entire grassy plain before him. It was said that the population of the demon race was huge and densely packed, but I've been drifting for half a day. Why haven't I seen anything? Did that old thing throw me into the forsaken land? Not long after, however, Yin Yang noticed something different. This did not seem to be the usual base of the demon race. On the vast expanse of white land, there seemed to be something moving. The reason why he had not seen it before was probably because the demons were all the same color as the grassy plain. In his haste, he had not been able to differentiate the snow-white bear demons, wolf demons, fox demons, and, all in all, without exception, they were all snow-white, without a hint of other colors. After observing them carefully for a while, Yin Yang confirmed another thing. Not only did these fellows look snow-white, they were also very heavy. They were so lazy that it was infuriating, so lazy that they could lie in the snow and not move for a long time. Wasn't he too good at enduring the cold? Yin Yang was able to move freely in the snowfield, just because his mystical chi was thick and his cultivation base was profound. He had also transformed into the water form of drifting snow, so the chill of the snowfield could do nothing to him. But what about the demonic beasts? Yin Yang roughly estimated that many of them were only low-level beginner-level beasts, and their combat power was negligible. How could they resist the cold so well? At the same time that he discovered that there were many low-level beginner beasts in the snowfield, Yin Yang also discovered that there were beings with abilities that were different from the Great Dawn continent. There were powerful auras flowing faintly in a few large snowy mountains far away, but these were the few auras that could make Yin Yang feel wary in the tens of thousands of miles of snowfield before him. Yin Yang knew that the owners of these auras were not easy to deal with. He, who had always adhered to the strategy of being willing to sail a ship for 10,000 years, naturally would not act rashly. After observing for a long time, he realized that the few auras seemed to be hiding their tracks, but they were actually concealing their presence. Deep down, they were all domineering, giving the impression that they were minding their own business. To be clear, if you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you either. Yin Yang calculated and already had an idea in his heart: territory. Territorial awareness. This side is mine, and that side is yours. The demonic race and the human race had very different attitudes towards the scope of individual forces. It was rare for the human powerhouses to spread their deific consciousness so brazenly, but the demonic race's powerhouses paid special attention to their own territories. If they did not spread their deific consciousness for a long time, the surrounding opponents would instead think that they were at the end of their tether and covet it. Based on Yin Yang's standpoint and his usual approach, it was appropriate for him to stir up some trouble now, such as luring a demon king into another demon king's territory and causing them to fight each other to the death, resulting in both sides suffering heavy losses. Or perhaps, he could use a certain treasure of heaven and earth to gather the demon kings in the nearby regions and fight it out so that he could reap the benefits. However, Yin Yang had other motives for this trip. At least for now, he did not want to cause any additional trouble. He quickly identified the direction and headed towards the center of the demon steppes. Yin Yang had two important objectives for this trip. One was to investigate if the god of wine was really related to the demonic race. Or was it related to the Four Seasons Tower and the demonic race? If so, could the bones of the 12 celestial beings and the god's grave be used to complete the task and end this case? Or was there something else that he had not thought of? As for the other objective, what was the purpose of the demon race's abduction of the people of the bound of universe all these years? What did they want? Just like that, the snowflakes fluttered for tens of thousands of miles. When Yin Yang was about to walk out of the snowfield, he roughly knew the name of this snowfield. White Plains. It was a simple and crude name, but it was a name that went straight to his heart. The name alone was not enough to disappoint Yin Yang. What disappointed Yin Yang more was that there were almost no treasures of heaven and earth in this vast White Plains. Even if there were a few, they were all within the territory of those powerful existences, and they had to be very, very close to those existences. As for other places, forget about treasures of heaven and earth, even the roots of grass were almost eaten up. This was probably the fundamental reason why the tens of thousands of miles of White Plains were so vast, where the strong grew stronger and the weak grew weaker. Although Yin Yang had long heard that the demon clan was not wealthy, he was still surprised that they could be this poor. However, there were also things that caught Yin Yang's attention on the White Plains. Even with Yin Yang's speed of movement, the long journey of tens of thousands of miles took some time. When he was about to reach the border of White Plains, Yin Yang suddenly realized that there was a type of fruit tree growing in countless places. Each tree had a diameter of several feet and each leaf was several feet wide. The leaves were milky white, like huge white clouds that stood in the air. Under the leaves hung many fruits that were as big as sacks, falling down heavily. Yin Yang had floated over to check more than once to make sure that there was no trace of demonic qi on the trees, but they were filled with the pulse of life. The sack-sized fruits weighed about 200 caddies each, and each tree could bear hundreds of fruits. More than half of them were white while the rest were either yellow or red. Looking at them, they looked like lanterns of various colors hanging on the trees. To be able to grow in such a frigid area, the trees were obviously not afraid of the cold. Yin-Yang collected the 3 fruits and entered his deific consciousness space. Naturally, there was one for each color, white, yellow, and red. When Yin-Yang took a break, he opened the fruits to observe them and found that they contained something similar to rice. It tasted sweet and fragrant, soft but not greasy, with a hint of spiritual qi. It was an excellent food to fill one's stomach. After opening all 3 fruits, he confirmed the meaning of the fruits of each color. The white fruits were still in the growth stage. Although they could be used, they tasted bitter and difficult to swallow. The yellow ones were half-ripe, tasteless, barely edible. Only the red ones were ripe and suitable for consumption. This is good stuff. Yin-Yang looked at the many trees in the White Plains, his eyes reddening. One fruit alone was equivalent to 170 to 180 caddies of rice. Not only did the ripe fruits taste good and could fill one's stomach, they also contained spiritual qi. Although the spiritual qi was very thin and much weaker than the most common of heaven and earth treasures, if a person were to eat such fruits for a long period of time, what kind of concept would that be? A tree could grow at least 300 to 400 fruits. Even if one fruit was only 100 caddies, one could still harvest more than 30,000 caddies. However, how many trees were there in this area that he could see with his naked eyes? The most conservative estimate would be at least 10,000 trees. In other words, this piece of land alone could produce at least 4 million caddies of high-quality rations. Yet, how much could the demon race eat to digest so much food? How many places like this were there in the entire White Plains? Calculating in this way, it wasn't just unusual, it was simply horrifying when one thought about it, and horrifying when one observed it. Yin-Yang plucked another leaf from the fruit tree. He could not help being shocked when he felt the weight on his hand. Yin-Yang was already at the level of a supreme saint. He could move mountains and fill oceans with just a wave of his hand. Although he could not circulate his mystical qi at the moment, his physical strength was already impressive. Yet, a leaf like this could actually make his hand feel heavy. It had to be at least 1,000 caddies in weight. Yin-Yang stared at the snow-white leaf that was about 3 feet thick and 50 to 60 feet wide. He tried to stab it with the tip of his sword, only to find that the leaf was unusually sturdy. Yin-Yang injected mystical qi into the sword and managed to cut through the leaf. Juice flowed out from within. The juice was clear and transparent, mixed with a faint fragrance. It was also an excellent drink that could be consumed. Yin-Yang tried to take a sip and his eyes could not help but widen. Not only was the juice of the leaf sweet and delicious, it also contained a trace of spiritual qi, not at all inferior to ordinary spiritual tea. If such a fruit tree could grow in the human world, would there still be a need to fear disaster? As Yin-Yang's thoughts spun, he connected the dots. With his intellect, how could he not know that there must be unique conditions for a unique creature to grow? For example, the tree's odd form and the fact that it was growing in this snowfield, there must be something special about it. At the very least, the environment it grew in might not be anywhere in the bound of universe or the Tianxian continent. Moreover, the tree might have a lot of requirements for nutrients as well. However, this did not affect Yin-Yang's desire. There must be a seal. While the world was vast and full of wonders, there was also adaptability. He believed that there would be a place that was suitable for such a plant to grow. The fruit tree alone was of no use to Yin-Yang's cultivation base, but it was a great help to ordinary living beings in this world that could sustain their survival. To put it bluntly, as long as a tree was planted, a village could not go hungry for a year. To any commoner, this was more important than many treasures of heaven and earth. Therefore, he had to get his hands on this item. Yin-Yang had the intention to snatch it, but he had to plan before he acted. With his cautious personality, he wanted to be fully prepared and not leave any loose ends. Yin-Yang studied it again and realized that each of the fruit trees was entangled with the deific consciousness of the demonic race's experts. The fruit trees that seemed to be everywhere were actually being watched over by someone. If Yin-Yang could think of it, so could the demonic race. Such a fruit tree was an excellent strategic resource. Of course, the demonic race would protect it with utmost care. It was not a problem to obtain a fruit or a leaf, as it could be easily obtained. After all, it was not the root. However, to obtain the entire tree, one would have to first ask the deific consciousness of the experts entangled on the tree. Furthermore, one would have to face the joint attack of many demonic race experts if one intended to do so. The vast expanse of the White Plains and the numerous fruit trees could never be guarded by just one or two experts' deific consciousness. However, Yin Yang had no qualms about alerting the enemy. In spite of this, Yin Yang could not care less. With a single thought, the White Plains shook violently. The towering trees that had been standing still were uprooted from the ground with a loud rumble. They flew into the air with large lumps of ice and snow, disappearing instantly. The moment the tree disappeared, countless demonic beasts flew over from the distant sky, emerged from the snow, or materialized out of thin air. Each of them looked at the mess on the ground as if they had lost their parents and let out furious roars. Who did this? Countless demonic beasts rushed over, all of them prostrated themselves in front of the huge pits, letting out angry roars. Who stole the tree of life? The tree of life. The name of the fruit tree was so grand, but as the name suggested, it was obvious that the fruit tree was the lifeline of the demonic race. However, it was not only the demonic race who thought so. Yin Yang had the same thought as well. With tens of thousands of trees like this as the foundation, no matter how many more people the demonic race produced, at the very least, there would not be any demons who would starve to death. Therefore, the name of the tree of life was well deserved. The tree was just like its name. Yin Yang, who had turned into the form of the wind, looked at the countless demons that were covered in snow. It was as if he had seen an avalanche that had gathered hundreds of thousands, millions, and tens of millions of demons. Everywhere he looked, there were demonic beasts everywhere. The densely packed beasts were still gathering from all directions. First level, second level, seventh level, surpassing level, king level, supreme level, foxes, tigers, lions, rats, snakes, and many others. In short, there were many of them. Other than the absence of feline demonic beasts, the rest were almost all restrained. Even the surging demonic aura was not enough to describe the current atmosphere. The demonic aura was everywhere, everywhere it went. Yin Yang now had a clear understanding: if he could kill all the demonic beasts in front of him and take their cores, he would become the richest man in the entire bound of universe, and he would be the only one of a kind. Yin Yang pinched his thigh forcefully, nipping the suicidal thought out of his mind. Not to mention anything else, just by looking at the number of demonic beasts here, if he were to show himself, he would be reduced to ashes in an instant. To put it simply, every single demon beast's spit was enough to drown him to death. Right now, this wasn't an exaggeration, but a reality. It was more than enough. If they died somewhere else, there might be a chance of resurrection. However, if they died here, they could only become the feces of the demonic beasts. Even his body and divine soul were the same. Becoming the richest man in Xianhuang is actually not a difficult task. We can take it slow. Yin Yang comforted her and drifted away leisurely. What demon core? What fur? It was all calcium. But why does my heart hurt so much? 2-in-1, apt, 2-in-1, mobile reading access, M. Chapter 1243. Yin Yang then comforted himself in his heart. What he had gained in the Holy Land of Tian Fa was enough to increase his net worth tenfold. It was important to be content with what one had. Asking for too much was the way to seek death. He was the wisest one, how could he not have this bit of self-control? Besides, it was not like he had gained nothing. Even if he could not get anything from the two main goals, it was already a huge gain beyond his expectations if he could only bring the tree of life back and find a way to cultivate it. Thinking of this, Yin Yang finally had no more attachments and floated out leisurely. He could hear that there was already a scuffle behind him, most of them blaming each other and pushing the blame onto each other. Where's the tree of life? You guys were watching this part. Bullsh asterisk T, isn't there your deific consciousness on it? Bullsh asterisk T, my deific consciousness is on it too, how can you blame me? Bang, bang, bang. Then, it was a scuffle. Yin Yang flicked his sleeves and ignored them. Despite the heated battle behind him, he walked as he pleased. Along the way, there was a caravan of the demon race. They were escorting hundreds of carts of fruits of the Tree of Life towards the most famous demon race city, Sky Crown City in the Demon Plain. Seeing that there was a forest oasis around them, the leader of the caravan, a Saint King level white bear, finally heaved a sigh of relief. Arriving here meant that the most difficult time had passed, and the road ahead was smooth and smooth, with no more dangers to speak of. This time's adventure in the White Plains could be said to be a narrow escape, but in the end, they still obtained the White Plains snow lotus seed and more than one snow eagle feather. This was a considerable amount of wealth. In addition, they had unexpectedly received a mission to escort the fruit of life into Sky Crown City. That was an unexpected reward of 1,000 Saint coins, a windfall from the sky. He had always wanted to return to Tianguan City, and he had accepted a task that was convenient for him. Although the other party had asked him to bring along a ring that looked simple and unadorned, but he didn't know what was inside it, it was just a matter of convenience. As long as he was careful, who would know that they had hidden a spatial ring? Even if they were robbed, as long as he could keep the ring, it would not matter even if he lost the fruit of life. But, what was that on the road ahead? It couldn't be a robbery, right? The leader of the caravan, the bare-headed man, looked at the black things on the side of the road indifferently, but his nose picked up a special smell, and he felt dizzy. The dizziness here was not a negative state in the general sense. Poor bear demon like me. Once dusk falls, my eyes don't work very well. Booty can smell this scent even from thousands of miles away. I won't miss it. That sweet smell made me feel like I was dreaming. It shook my divine soul and shook my will. That wooden barrel that looked like a small mountain was clearly filled with honey. Moreover, it had to be a special kind of honey with spiritual energy. Oh my God. The bare-headed man couldn't take it anymore. His saliva flowed down like a river. Salivating wasn't even enough to describe it. On the side of the road, near the barrels of honey, there was a purple-furred fox demon. In front of him was a table, and other than a few side dishes, there was only a big bowl of yellowish sticky honey. It was that honey that emitted an enchanting sweet smell. This damn fox demon was actually drinking honey with side dishes. Didn't the others drink wine? How dare he? How dare he? The white bear's saliva flowed freely, and his heart was filled with anger. Did you do it on purpose? Did you do it on purpose? You definitely did it on purpose. Otherwise, why would you be drinking honey on the side of the road when I was walking here? Not only did you drink honey, but it smelled so good, and there was so much of it. It was really enough. There were at least a few hundred barrels of it. Wait, a few hundred barrels? The white bear looked at the mountain of honey behind the fox demon. There were so many barrels, so there must be tens of thousands of pounds of honey. What are you doing? You, a fox, can make so much honey. What do you think I am? The white bear's eyes gradually turned ferocious and greedy. I can't bear it. Since I can't bear it anymore, there's no need to bear it anymore. You're clearly forcing me to rob you. The white bear's eyes emitted a terrifying light. He took the lead and rushed forward. He said angrily, "How dare you, fox demon, block the road and rob us?" The other demon companions who followed the white bear all felt their brains short-circuiting and their heads spinning. When did they block the road and rob us? Why didn't we see that they had the slightest intention of robbing us? Could it be that our experience is too shallow? Our heads are really hurting, dizzy, and our brains are not enough. From the looks of it, the truth is that you want to rob them, right? The fox demon raised his head and looked at the white bear in surprise. What? The white bear said angrily, "Brothers, they want to rob us of our goods. Let's go." The brothers looked at each other. "Big brother, even if you're a money grubber, you should at least take some time to be honest, right? We've accepted a commission to escort goods, and no one has robbed us along the way. We're very lucky. But now, you want to create one out of nothing. What are you trying to do?" Although we all know what you're trying to do, can't you be a little more honest? Don't find such a vulgar excuse." The next moment, White Bear's majestic body had already rushed forward impatiently. He roared fiercely, "Let me tell you, you despicable fox demon, how dare you rob us of our dough? I won't forgive you. Let me tell you, unless you give me all this honey, I won't let today's matter rest." As he spoke, the white bear impatiently picked up the big bowl of honey on the table and drank it in one gulp. His eyes widened. This is not ordinary honey. It's not even the ordinary high-grade stuff, it's purple crystal honey. Heavens! The next moment, the white bear's eyes turned red. He rushed forward like a whirlwind and with a wave of his hand, dozens of buckets of honey entered his spatial ring. Then, he waved his hand again, obviously not satisfied and not wanting to let go of any bit. "I'm so happy. If this is a dream, please let me wake up later." Unfortunately, sweet dreams are never easy to wake up from. A hand that was like an iron hoop suddenly grabbed the white bear's wrist, ending his happy dream. "Let me go. I want to keep all the honey." The white bear was furious. At this moment, apart from the priceless purple crystal honey, there was nothing else in his eyes. However, the next moment, he felt his wrist tighten. With a crack, one of his bones was broken. The white bear felt a sharp pain in his heart. He instinctively looked up and was shocked. The one who grabbed his wrist was the fox demon. At this moment, the fox demon was so angry that all the hair on his body stood on end. His eyes were like a deep whirlpool, like a sky full of stars spinning and twinkling in his eyes. His originally thin and small body suddenly swelled up. His entire body became abnormally huge, and the difference in size between him and White Bear was immediately reversed. A crown that had taken shape shone in midair, especially eye-catching. Still holding on to White Bear, he asked word by word, "White Bear, what are you doing?" The whole nest was silent. The white bear wet his pants and was dumbfounded on the spot. A Saint Emperor-level demonic beast. The white bear's mind was blank. The fox demon had a crown on his head, so it was very likely that he was a peak Saint Emperor-level demonic beast. He was already the strongest person in his team, but he was only a third-grade Saint King. How could he have rashly provoked such a death god? "You said I wanted to rob you?" The purple fox demon glared at the white bear. His eyes were like arrows, as if he wanted to eat him. No, Senior, please spare me. This is a misunderstanding." The white bear knelt down with a thud. His chubby face was actually simple and honest. "Senior, please spare me." Misunderstanding? Spare me? The fox demon was so angry that his whole body was trembling. "You white bear, you are so unreasonable. I didn't provoke anyone. I was just drinking something by the roadside. You keep saying that I robbed you. Where did that come from? It's fine if you're AB** starred, but you rushed up to me and drank my priceless purple crystal honey without saying a word. Not only did you drink it all, you even snatched away dozens of buckets. If I didn't stop you, you wouldn't have left the rest for me, right? The intention of killing and robbing is clear. The fact of relying on force to commit murder is still vivid in my mind. How can there be such a misunderstanding in this world?" The white bear's furry face had already turned purple from shock. He knelt on the ground, stammering and sweating profusely. The white bear's brothers also looked at each other and swarmed up to apologize. All of them were sweating profusely, their clothes drenched in sweat. This matter really couldn't be explained no matter what. As long as one wasn't stupid, they could see the whole story and the truth. This was obviously our own boss taking a fancy to the other party's honey. Just look at the saliva at the corner of his mouth, which he hadn't even wiped off yet. What was up with this fellow's obsession with honey? We are bears too. Why aren't we so useless? In fact, it wasn't the first time that this fellow, White Bear, had resorted to stealing honey. They were almost used to it. But this time, they had kicked an iron plate. You, a mere holy king, robbed a holy emperor's honey right in front of your face, and you still want to accuse him. There was no one else who had this kind of guts. That was purple crystal honey. The moment it entered his mouth, he should have been able to judge it. To be able to possess such honey, and such a large amount at that, how could it be someone easy to deal with? This time, White Bear was doomed. White Bear looked up, wanting to cry but having no tears. His heart and soul were about to split apart. The fox demon glared at White Bear and asked sinisterly, "You stupid bear, tell me, how do you want this matter to be settled?" White Bear was instantly pleasantly surprised. It seemed that although this lord was tyrannical, he was still very benevolent. He actually didn't take his life. That was great. Hot tears welled up in his eyes. Just now, he was so scared that he couldn't even cry. My lord, I deserve to die. I was bewitched. My lord is magnanimous. He kowtowed continuously. The dozens of barrels of purple crystal honey that had just been stored in the spatial ring were naturally taken out and placed neatly on the ground. White Bear's 7 or 8 brothers saw that the fox demon didn't kill him immediately and came over, kowtowing repeatedly. They were also afraid. The fear in their hearts was no less than White Bear's. It was reasonable for this senior to kill White Bear. It was easy for him to turn over his palm, and no one could say a word of objection. However, everyone was afraid that he would turn over his palm and kill the others as well. This was really something that happened in passing. "Senior, please forgive me." The fox demon frowned and said coldly, "Forgive me? How can I forgive you?" White Bear and his brothers were all stunned. How could he forgive me? How could he forgive me? I'll let you tell me what to do about this matter. Although this purple fox demon was tyrannical and unfathomable, he didn't have the intention to kill. Everyone could see this. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't even have the courage to reply. But at the same time, everyone saw that the fox demon seemed to want some benefits or compensation. White Bear trembled and said, "Senior, what do you think we should do?" As he spoke, he scolded himself. Was this stupid bear blinded by honey? Why did he do such a stupid thing today to provoke such an awesome person? Wasn't he courting death? Couldn't he have just hurried on his way? Look at the trouble he had caused. He was speechless. The purple fox demon shook his head and snorted. If you only wanted some purple crystal honey, then forget it. I can understand the nature of the Bear clan. But why did you slander my reputation and say that I was a robber? This is the greatest insult to me. This matter must not be taken lightly. Yes, 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 yes. White Bear lowered his voice and spoke in an extremely gentle tone. Humph. The fox demon was still angry. What I want to hear now is a solution. White Bear's head was full of sweat, but he didn't know how to respond. Just now, all his thoughts were on the purple crystal honey and he didn't have the heart to think about anything else. Now, it was the same. He couldn't even afford to pay for that bowl of purple crystal honey. How about this? You compensate me for the psychological damage and damage to my reputation. Of course, I've always been a person of great self-restraint, but I was infuriated by you. You'll have to compensate me for the loss of self-restraint. In addition, you'll have to compensate me for the bowl of purple crystal honey. The purple-haired fox demon said righteously, I didn't ask for much from you. That bowl of purple crystal honey, just sell it at the market price. As for the rest, a total of 1,000,000 Saint Origin coins. White Bear wailed loudly, large teardrops streaming down his face. Mobile reading access, M. Chapter 1244. Bai Xiong cried. I ate your purple crystal honey. As the saying goes, an eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. Since I ate your purple crystal honey, I should compensate you accordingly. Although the market price of purple crystal honey is ridiculously high, I gritted my teeth and accepted it. But that 1 million Saint Origin coins? That's 1 million Saint Origin coins. Could it be that our low cultivation level limits our understanding of the wealth of high-level cultivators? Our Saint Origin coins are not the same as the Bound of Universe's spirit stones. Although the Bound of Universe's spirit stones contain spiritual energy and can be used as an equivalent item, it can also assist in cultivation. In terms of practical value, it is indeed much better than the demon race's Saint Origin coins. But the demon race's Saint Origin coins are worth a lot. 1 Saint Origin coin is enough for an ordinary family of 10 to eat 2 months' worth of lifeline fruits. With 300 pieces, one could buy a medium-sized house in a place like Tianguan City where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. If he had more than 10,000 Saint Yuan coins on hand, he could be considered a millionaire. I've worked so hard for so many years and I've only earned a little. You want 1 million Saint Origin coins. It's not even enough to skin all of us demon race. What's wrong? The fox demon's face darkened. Do you think I'm asking for too much? Well, the ancient beast here refers to some kind of ancient giant demon beast. The lion's big mouth doesn't live up to its name. Bai Xiong wailed. My lord. The 7 of us have worked so hard for more than 200 years and we haven't saved much money. My lord, you're asking for too much. The fox demon said, what do you mean? You keep saying you don't have money. Are you guys not going to compensate me? It's okay if you don't have money, I'll give you an extra one. Come at me together. If you can survive one move from me, your karma will be gone. If you can't, your karma will be gone too. The demon king in front of them was a peak saint emperor. Even if the 7 of them gave it their all and risked their lives to defend, there was no way they could withstand a single blow from the demon king. After a single blow, the karma was indeed over and they were all dead. How could it not be over? But the 7 of them understood this and were unwilling to let the game end here. They knelt down in unison and said, Sir, please spare us. It's not that we don't want to compensate you, but we really can't. The 7 of them were covered in tears and snot. We are just small characters who work hard. Our savings are limited. Now, it's really hard to earn money. The fox demon snorted, his murderous intent surging. If you don't have money, then you deserve to die. The 7 of them saw that the situation was far from good. Trembling with fear, they began to dig into their pockets. He took out all the things in his spatial ring and piled them up in a messy pile. Senior, this is all we have. If there's anything you like, we won't say anything else. The fox demon was speechless. The demon looked over and saw that there were only a few monster cores, and they were all low grade. There were also some monster beast hides that were all missing. There were also some low-grade medicines that were simply unsightly. After that, there were close to 300,000 Saint Yuan coins that were emitting a faint white light. That's it? That's all you have? The fox demon looked at the 7 monsters in front of him in surprise. That's it, that's really it. White Bear said while crying. The fox demon's expression became even uglier. Do you really think I don't know what's going on? With just this little bit of wealth, you're clearly trying to humiliate me. All of you have cultivated to the Saint King level, so no matter what, you should have accumulated a considerable amount of wealth. By only offering this little, you're clearly trying to fool me. White Bear wanted to cry, but no tears came out. My lord, you've wronged us. We were born into a poor family, and since we were young, we've had no permanent assets. The path of cultivation is rugged and difficult. We've only been able to cultivate to this point because we've been accumulating bit by bit to reach our current realm. Even this wealth in front of us is because we haven't found a wife yet, so we've saved up this little bit of wealth. As he spoke, he felt so uncomfortable that he couldn't speak. We've actually been very diligent, and this amount of wealth is already enough to make us rich in Sky Crown City. We've earned a lot, but how could the cost of cultivation be small? No wonder you wanted to rob me, and it was a thief crying thief. It turns out that you're just 7 poor bastards who have no intention of a fair trade. The fox demon said disdainfully. Step forward. The 7 monsters took a step forward in confusion, but were shocked to find that the fox demon had actually grabbed White Bear and the others and was using his divine sense to search their bodies. The 7 monsters naturally didn't dare to resist and allowed the fox demon to search their bodies, but they couldn't help but grumble in their hearts. This great monster's cultivation is high, but his vision is really not high. The monster race respects the strong. In front of a powerful great monster, how would we dare to hide anything? Why do we need to search them like this and lower ourselves in vain? The fox demon completely ignored the surprised gazes of the other monsters and carefully searched every corner of their bodies. Suddenly, what's hanging around your neck? The fox demon pointed to a white bear. Just now, this fellow had taken out the least, nothing at all, less than 1,000 Saint Origin coins in total. Yes. I prepared. The colorful white bear stammered. Yes. I prepared a piece of spiritual yuan stone for my fiancée to propose to. As he spoke, he clumsily pulled it from his neck and presented it with both hands. If Lord likes it, please take it. Fiancée? The fox demon's eyes immediately focused on that piece of spiritual yuan stone, his gaze strange. What spiritual yuan stone? Wasn't this the spiritual jade of the bound of universe? And it was just a piece of mid-grade spiritual jade. In the bound of universe, even the most common heaven and earth treasures, spirit roots and spirit seedlings could be exchanged for some mid-grade trading currency. Could it be that spiritual jade was actually so valuable here in the monster realm? This self-deprecating fox demon, no, the black and white double demons of the past, the great sect master Yun, who had been plucked by swallows, could not help but look at the mountainous pile of high-grade spiritual jades and a considerable amount of top-grade spiritual jades in his spiritual sense space. How much were these worth? Forget it, you can keep it to find a wife, Yun Yang sighed. It seems that you all have had a hard time. If that's the case, I won't go too far and be kind to others. With a roll of his sleeves, he rolled up about 10,000 Saint Origin coins and said, Karma begets karma. There's a beginning and an end. Even if you all have had a hard time, it can't be the reason for your mistake this time. I'll only accept the equivalent of a bowl of amethyst honey. As for the other compensation, you all have to do something for me in exchange. Lord, please speak. Of course, the 7 of them didn't dare to say that a bowl of amethyst honey wasn't worth that much money. Although it is indeed a good thing, with a price but no supply, it can be used to beautify a banshee and nourish a cultivator's meridians. But you've gone through a lot of trouble. The market price is at most 12,000 Saint Origin coins, but you took 10,000. But who would dare to say this in their hearts? This lord didn't want their lives and didn't take away all these hundreds of thousands of Saint Origin coins. That was obviously very kind. Why don't you try offending other adults? They would just annihilate you without a second word. This reputed one came here and met an old rival by chance. It was inevitable that we had a fight. Yin Yang sighed. Although I didn't lose, I coincidentally broke the spatial ring. The water has its source and the tree has its roots. If it weren't for this accident, this wouldn't have happened. Yin Yang rolled his eyes. This reputed one was just fretting about what to do with so much amethyst honey, and then a silly bear like you came looking for trouble. Hearing this, White Bear couldn't help thumping his chest and stomping his feet, sobbing uncontrollably. How unlucky am I to have come across such a miraculous event? A demon asked obediently, May I ask how Senior wants us juniors to serve you? If there's anything you want us to do, we will obey without hesitation. There's nothing else. I just want you all to help me transport these things into Celestial Crown City. Yin Yang was very generous. As long as you all do this well, I won't pursue this matter. Hearing this, White Bear and the others hurriedly agreed, yes, yes. Thank you, Lord, for your magnanimity and magnanimity. The demons were full of flattery, but it came from the bottom of their hearts. This lord in front of them was really a kind-hearted person. We've already been offended, but he only asked us to do this. It was obvious that he was setting a trap for us and giving us a way out. There was nothing to say about his magnanimity. As for the 10,000 saint coins, they definitely deserved it. Not to mention that they had drunk the amethyst honey, just the fact that they could feel the aura of a royal Saint Pinnacle expert was not something that could be done with 10,000 saint coins. But when they turned their heads again, the 7 fairies all had worried expressions on their faces. The Lord Demon King's request was not difficult. It was not even a problem, but how were they going to transport it? The cart was already filled to the brim with their own goods, and the few space rings that they and the others had could not contain so much purple crystal honey at all. If Bai Xiong's space ring was big enough, he would have stored it all at once. How could he only have a small portion, and the others were in a worse situation than Bai Xiong? Then, the demons came to a conclusion. The Lord's broken spatial ring was really big to be able to hold so many things. He was indeed a strong expert. Sir, please wait here for a moment. White Bear said flatteringly, I'll ask my brothers to quickly get a few carts back. The purple crystal honey is a good item that has a price but no supply. It must not be touched. Even the slightest loss is undeserved. Yin Yang rolled his eyes impatiently. I know. Go and do it quickly. Bear San. White Bear stood up and ordered, quick, go find a few carts for Lord. Bear San was White Bear. Hearing this, he looked conflicted and scratched his head. Where to? Bastard. White Bear was furious. Go wherever you can get it. If you don't go quickly and delay Lord's business, I'll King kill you. Now that his life was no longer in danger, the domineering aura of a big brother could finally be seen. White Bear agreed quickly and turned to run away. White Bear, what's your name? It looked like he could not leave any time soon. Let's have a chat. Reporting to Lord, White Bear bye. White Bear bowed. White Bear bye. The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. White Bear bye, King White Bear, was there a black bear? What about them? What are their names? These are my twin brothers, White Bear Black and White Bear Blue. White Bear pointed at the other 2 white bears who were equally brawny. Cough, cough. Good names. Yin Yang coughed. It was obviously all white from what he saw. Why were black and blue here? These are my sworn brothers, from the same tribe. This is Black Bear 1, this is Black Bear 2, and this is Flower Bear 7. The one who left is Flower Bear 3. White Bear was ashamed as well. Xian knows that his name isn't nice and loud, but our parents are really uncultured. Xian's sworn brothers, their parents are even more uncultured. Us brothers at least have some color, but they just call it 1, 2, 3. At the end of his speech, he actually became somewhat complacent, as if he was proud of himself. Yin Yang was dumbfounded. He did not understand where his sense of superiority came from at all. Actually, the Bear clan is already much more blessed than the Rat clan. White Bear's sense of superiority grew. I know a Saint King level cultivator from the Rat clan. His name is Flower Rat 3748. White Bear actually couldn't help but smile. No matter how cultured his parents were, it would be difficult for them to give their thousands of children the same name. And the snake tribe, wahahaha, the flower snake tribe has hundreds of eggs in a single nest. It's normal for them to be called Hua Ban, ha 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 ha. As he spoke, White Bear seemed to have said something funny. But it's still not as good as the Big Fish clan. Burp. Under Yun Yang's exasperated gaze, White Bear actually plopped down on the ground, his huge paws slapping the ground as he guffawed like a madman. It was only slightly inferior to laughing until his stomach burst from all the laughter. Ha 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 ha. His 5 brothers were glaring at him from the side, exasperated. Looking at this fellow who had caused such a disaster, they thought, why are you laughing so happily when the biggest trouble is still right in front of you? I just want to ask, you've provoked a god and made your brothers kneel at the edge of life and death, but you're still so happy? It's really hard to name those who can give birth to thousands and tens of thousands of children in a nest. Yin Yang sighed. Is it a mistake for a team like mine to enter Sky Crown City? That's not it. Not many of them will survive even if there are thousands or tens of thousands of them. More than 99% will die young. White Bear Bai's eyes widened. Xian was just thinking of what if they were to give names one by one. Ha 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 ha. White Bear Bai laughed loudly again, and did not stop for a long time. Now, even the expelling race drivers could not hold themselves back anymore. Every demon in the entire convoy looked at this crazy bear with a frown on their faces. Was there something wrong with the bear? It had to be. It was accurate, there was no room for error. The trip to the demon clan had begun. This should be the last major plot of the book. After the demon race, it ended. Apt, mobile reading access, M. Chapter 1245. Listening to White Bear Bai's rambling, Yin Yang was so angry that he almost reverted to his human form. There must be something wrong with this bear's head. He must have forgotten to take the wrong medicine and eaten fake medicine. You've offended me and we haven't settled it yet, have we? You can actually laugh so happily, there's really no one else like you. Yin Yang looked at the bear from the corner of his eyes. This fellow's huge head was definitely not filled with brain matter. It was either cotton, water, or cotton mixed with water. For the first time, Yin Yang felt a tinge of guilt and regret. Although his original intention was to find a team of stupid fellows to enter Tianguan City, this was too stupid. Although it was not a crime to deceive fools these days, it was still a little unbearable. Taking a deep breath to control his temper, Yin Yang said indifferently, the demon race's reproductive ability is much better than that of humans. This is also where our race's advantage lies. It is also because of this reason that the battlefield will never lack our warriors. White Bear Bai grinned. Sir is right, it is very reasonable, it is thought-provoking, and it is well received. Yin Yang felt a little speechless. What was this thing saying? It was very reasonable and thought-provoking? This is something that everyone knows, okay? Oh my god. This reputed one is also forced to make a living this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come all the way here. Yin Yang, who was the fox demon, began to sigh sadly. White Bear Bai rolled his eyes, his gaze full of disbelief and disbelief. Sir, you too, does that mean, such a prominent figure like you would actually have a financial crisis? The bear race is not smart, but we are not so easily deceived. Forced to make a living? Yin Yang sighed. The strongest among you now is only at the level of a holy king, but how much resources have you consumed to cultivate to this point? Do you feel that the resources consumed now are already astronomical, but the resources needed in the future are even more unimaginable? Even if you work hard every day, you still can't make ends meet. But do you know how much resources are needed to maintain the needs of cultivation at my level? White Bear Bai and his brothers fell into deep thought, their expressions changing. The daily needs of peak holy venerable Xiuzha were beyond their knowledge, but it was also astounding. Although there's a difference in cultivation between you and me, as a high-level cultivator, the situation is similar every time you're about to break through. It's normal that you can't run away anymore. You have to rush over in one go. And at that time, how many treasures of heaven and earth will be needed? If there's a sudden lack of resources during the breakthrough, it'll be a waste of effort and the failure of the breakthrough will be secondary. Yin Yang chuckled. Do you know what the most serious consequence is? White Bear stammered, chi deviation. Yin Yang shook his head. Wrong. Qi deviation is only the lightest case. At that level, only Qi deviation can make people feel lucky. The most serious case is death, with both the spirit and spirit destroyed. The demons sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. This reputed one is now at the last step. I came out this time to look for some opportunities and try to break through. I didn't expect to meet an old opponent that I'd been fighting for half my life. Yin Yang sighed dejectedly. I really don't know if this reputed one's fate has come to an end. My spatial ring was destroyed in the battle a few days ago, and I've lost about 70 to 80% of my resources. I'm only left with this bit of amethyst honey, but I've also met you guys. Do you think 1,000,000 saint coins would attract this reputed one? White Bear Bai looked ashamed. But you guys. Yin Yang frowned. You don't look young anymore. Why do you only have such a low cultivation base? White Bear Bai said shamefully, we're all relying on our family heritage and innate talents. Our innate talents are shallow, there's no strong cultivator willing to take us in as disciples, and we don't have quality resources to support our cultivation. We're able to come this far because our brothers fought each other every day, slowly honing our skills. What we cultivate is the lowest level of our demon race, the demonic saint art. The brothers lowered their heads in dejection, the previous jovial atmosphere gone. What a pity. Yin Yang sighed. You guys are dumb, but your temperaments aren't bad. Especially after such a long period of training, you've forged yourselves into pure gold and unpolished jade. If someone with a discerning eye could sculpt you. It's a pity that this reputed one has to return as soon as possible after dealing with this matter. I don't have time. White Bear Bai and the rest's eyes lit up at once. Although they were a little stupid, they weren't really stubborn. They couldn't understand it no matter what. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to cultivate the most basic demonic saint arts to the current level. Without any eye contact, the 6 bears knelt on the ground. Lord. My lord, we're willing to acknowledge you as our master, please take us in. Our words are the law, and we won't regret it even if we die 9 times. As soon as they finished, they kowtowed continuously, not listening for a long time. A certain fox demon senior did not know whether to laugh or cry. I only said it's a pity, and that I don't have time, but when did I say that I want to take you guys in as disciples? White Bear Bai and the rest only kowtowed. Perhaps it was a collective epiphany that struck these fellows. They did not even use their demonic energy to protect themselves, only causing their 6 heads to bleed profusely. They were dumb, but they knew that this was a rare opportunity for their brothers and that it would not come again if they missed it. It was rare for an almighty figure to reveal a little bit of his true nature, and to admire them as well. If they missed this chance, there might not be another one in this lifetime. Yin Yang frowned. Even if you guys smash your heads, I'll never take you in as disciples. Don't blame me for being too frank. Even if your temperaments are worthy of admiration, your talents are still too poor to be my disciples. White Bear Bai and the rest only kowtowed and begged, please accept us, my lord. Blood had already formed a pool, a ghastly sight to behold, but the sound of the kowtowing did not stop. Instead, it grew louder and deeper. White Bear Bai pleaded desperately, my lord, although we brothers have some cultivation base, we're still the lowest of the lowest in this demon plane. No demon has ever looked up to us, and no demon has ever looked us in the eye. Walking in the demon plane, even a small demon that can be poked to death with a finger dares to humiliate us. It's just because we don't have a backer. Even though we're angry, we don't dare to offend them, we're suffering, please have mercy, my lord. We want to become stronger. We want to become demon kings too. White Bear Bai kowtowed to the ground, and with a loud thud, a large pool of blood spurted out. If we miss this chance, there'll be no hope for us in this lifetime. Please have mercy, my lord. Yin Yang finally sighed. All right. Get up, all of you, you gluttons. I'll probably stay here for a few months. During this period of time, you can ask me if you have any questions. However, there's one thing you have to understand. You're not my disciples. If you dare to show off in the name of my disciples, I'll take your lives regardless of the reason. Yin Yang said, will this do? Just take it as a form of good karma that I've forged in this world of mortals. White Bear Bai and the rest kowtowed hard. Disciples pay respect to master. I've said that I won't take you in. This will never happen. Whether master accepts us or not, in our hearts, we're master's disciples. Yin Yang sighed. Get up quickly. What's the point of all these big and burly men kneeling and sprawling? White Bear and the others kowtowed once more before standing up. Although their heads were bleeding profusely, and blood flowed all over the ground, all of them had smiles on their faces and were in high spirits. Master. I've told you many times, don't call me master, Yin Yang sighed again and again. I really don't know if it's right or wrong to take you fellows in. Is it karma or ill-fated karma? White Bear Bai and the rest only smiled foolishly, but no one answered him. Obviously, they were not really stupid, these Saint coins, and Tianguan City, and this, the spiritual crystal that fellow took out just now, it's obviously from the bound of universe. How can it be used as a token of love? Is there a secret behind this? Yin Yang began to clear up his doubts. As he got closer to the densely populated demon cities, he could no longer completely conceal himself with his manifestation powers. He had to arrange a public identity for himself so that it would be convenient for him to carry out his follow-up actions. At the same time, he had to familiarize himself with some basic affairs of the demon race so that he would not be exposed. Otherwise, why would he go in when he would be in the dark after entering? Hua Xiongsan had gone to look for a carriage, but with his demonic bloodline and financial resources, it was estimated that he would not be able to return anytime soon. The bear demons eagerly set up a tent for their master, and respectfully invited their master to sit and wait. Then, they all squeezed into the tent one by one. The closer he was to his master, the better. This situation naturally formed a unique tea party. After some conversation, Yin Yang finally had a more intuitive understanding of the myriad demon plane. The myriad demon plane was indeed a barren land. There was not enough to eat, not enough to drink, and the cultivation resources were so scarce that it made one's hair stand on end. Although there was a heaven-defying grain fruit like the lifeline fruit, it was far from enough compared to the population of the demon race. It was not a drop in the bucket, but a drop in the bucket. The reason was still what Yin Yang had said just now. The demon race's reproductive ability was too terrifying. This was the strongest characteristic of the demon race, but it was also their fatal weakness. Take a couple from the rat race as an example. They could give birth once a month, and each litter could have at least a dozen mice. It was common for the rat race to have more than a dozen mice. It was because the rat race's vitality and ability to adapt to the environment were unusually strong. Usually, they would mature after 3 months and could find a partner to reproduce. To put it more intuitively, when a rat race couple gave birth to their 12th litter of mouse babies in a year, they would also welcome their 9th litter of great-grandchildren at the same time. In a year's time, the number of offspring produced by this rat race couple alone would exceed 10,000. Moreover, this was the most conservative and lowest number. In a month's time, the number would increase by almost 10 times, which would be 100,000. Although the rat race's vitality and ability to adapt to the environment were not the same as their cultivation talent, more than 95% of them were ordinary mice with a lifespan of 1 or 2 years at most, or they would die at birth. Based on the rat race's reproductive level, they would still produce many offspring with cultivation talent. As long as they were mice with cultivation talent, their lifespan would definitely not be an ordinary 2 or 3 years. It was unpredictable. How many offspring of the rat race would be born if they continued to reproduce like this? The number would be so huge that it was impossible to calculate. It was terrifying to imagine. It was not that the demon emperor did not see the crisis of survival resources and gave the order to control the population of the demon race, starting from the start of reproduction. However, many of the demon race's lifespan was very short. Often, when the order was given, they would not even be born. In this process, without waiting for the notice, they would have already completed the reproduction task that far exceeded the expected number. Then, when they finally received the notice, they would already be old or dying. There were even many who did not receive the notice even until their deaths. After so many plans, the results were minimal. The upper echelons of the demon race also accepted their fate. It was impossible to control the reproduction. Furthermore, even if you could control mice, bears, and wolves, how could you control the microscopic demon race like mosquitoes and ants? Also, how could you control the fish race? In the end, they were simply left to their own devices. Apart from those who were especially talented, some arrangements would be made. The rest would be left to their own devices. It was precisely because of this specific living environment that the demon race had never believed in justice since ancient times. Instead, they believed in the survival of the fittest. The most extreme and direct way was to eliminate the weak and keep the strong. There was a saying in the world that snakes eat mice for half a year, and mice eat snakes for half a year. The general idea was that snakes and mice were natural enemies. Within a year, snakes that were not in hibernation would eat mice on sight. In contrast, mice were the biggest enemies of dormant snakes. Countless hibernating snakes were eaten by mice. This situation also existed in the demon realm, and was even more severe. As cultivators, the snake demon and rat demon were natural opposites. The conflict between them was even more prominent. Almost every time they met, they would fight. However, the stronger one would live, and the weaker one would die. And such an example did not only apply to species that were mutually exclusive. For example, if the chicken race was strong, then they could eat the phoenix. There was no such thing as racial suppression. Eat, eat, eat whatever you want, as long as you can eat it. By right, the annual yield of the fruit of lifeline would be hundreds of billions of kilograms. If it were in the bound of universe, they would still be rich if they ate as much as they wanted. However, for the demon race, it was far from enough. Even with the addition of other crops, it was still far from enough. Therefore, every year, there would be more than billions of demon race members killed each other, becoming food for their opponents. But there were even more who did not have the talent to cultivate. They were destined to die silently the moment they were born. This was the cruel reality of the demon race. It was bloody but helpless. Sky Crown City is the territory of the Crane Demon King. It is one of the more orderly cities in the Plains of Demons. White Bear Bai explained about Sky Crown City. In the Plains of Demons, there are not more than 100 such large and orderly cities. For other cities, entering the city is equivalent to entering a bandit's lair or a fighting ring. If not for their strength, they would never enter. In a city like that, if you want to do business without a certain level of cultivation base, you won't be able to find anything in more than an hour. Not even your skin and bones will be left. White Bear Bai's face was pale. Master, your cultivation base is profound and has reached the pinnacle of the royal saint. But from what you said earlier, you must have climbed up step by step. You should know that when cultivators of our generation go out to gather resources, it's already a narrow escape. When we come back to trade for resources, it's another narrow escape. Master, from the moment we're born, before we open our eyes, until the moment we close our eyes, we're always fighting. The other bears were weeping as well. Other than not fighting in the womb, we have to face death at other times. White Bear Bai grinned. I heard that I had a few brothers who were crushed to death by my father when he turned over in his sleep when they were just born. Yun Yang was speechless. I didn't expect the world to be so chaotic after years of closed-door cultivation. It's sad for the demon race, sad for the demon race. Yun Yang sighed. Isn't that right? White Bear Bai was full of resentment as well. Yun Yang's indirect questioning confirmed another important fact. As the demon race was poor, they could only make some iron sheets and stamp them with a unique seal. These were the so-called sacred coins. They were not like the bound of universe, where spiritual jade was used as a currency of equivalent value. It was more practical and could be spent while absorbing energy for cultivation. To the demon race here, this was a fantasy. Why did they have to be so extravagant? Was there really such a thing? Many demons with low cultivation base would not believe it even if they said it out loud. Boasting. Even we demon emperors don't have such a rich family background. This situation had led to another matter. Once the bound of universe's spiritual jade was brought to the demon race, it would be considered a valuable item. An unparalleled treasure. Just now, White Bear San had said that he would use the spiritual jade to give to his fiancée as a token of love, an engagement gift. It was true indeed. Although it was only a piece of mid-class spiritual jade, it was more than enough. His father-in-law would feel very proud, especially since his daughter would have someone to rely on for life. His son-in-law was the best, his daughter would never make a mistake in this lifetime. However, after listening to the introduction, Yun Yang could not help feeling a little overwhelmed. Was this really the case? Could this be the main reason why the demon race wanted to rush to the bound of universe so desperately? F***ck, if it were me, I'd rather go to the bound of universe to be someone's pet, than stay here. I have quite a lot of the spiritual jade from the human realm that you all view as treasures. Is this thing very rare? Yun Yang mused. White Bear Bai's eyes widened. Master, you have the unparalleled treasure from the bound of universe? Unparalleled treasure, Yun Yang was speechless. Putting aside the supreme-class spiritual jade, Yun Yang's spatial ring contained countless upper-class spiritual jade and mid-class spiritual jade. After all, when the black and white ruthless duo traded with the Commerce League, what they gained the most was the spiritual jade. On the contrary, there was not even a piece of lower-class spiritual jade. After all, the price-performance ratio was too low. Back then, I had accepted a secret mission to infiltrate the human race. Yun Yang looked as if he could not bear to recall the past as he said slowly, when the mission was completed and I returned to the demon realm, I was discovered by the human experts guarding the sacred mountain. After a great battle, not only was I severely injured, my cultivation base had also fallen by half. I was unable to recover from the setback, so I became disheartened and decided to live in seclusion. Although Yun Yang's words were lamenting the past, to White Bear Bai and the rest of the demon race, it was no different from a bolt from the blue. It was too amazing. My master was so amazing back then. Not only had he gone to the human realm and caused trouble, but his cultivation base had also fallen and he still had an unreachable profound cultivation base. What kind of almighty being must master have been in the past? The fox demon that Yun Yang had transformed into looked up at the sky and did not speak for a long while. Suddenly, he sighed softly, I'm old. I wonder when I can recover to 9 tails. After saying that, 8 large furry tails unexpectedly appeared behind his buttocks. They gently swayed, and then seemed to have suddenly discovered something. He frowned, and with a swoosh, the 8 furry tails retracted. Only one was left, squatting on the ground and continuing to sigh. However, White Bear Bai and the other bears' eyes widened at once, feeling their hearts thumping wildly. 8 tails. That was obviously 8 tails, 8 clear tails. Did this mean that their master was a master of the Fox clan? Listening to their master, it seemed like he had fallen from 9 tails. Oh my God, the bears' mouths were parched and they were speechless for a moment. Don't tell others about my background so easily. Yun Yang's weathered voice rang again, my enemies in the demon plane, not to say that they are scattered all over the place, almost scattered all over the place, enemies. White Bear shuddered at the sound of it. Oh my God. You must have made enemies when you were 9 tails, right? Then your enemies, what kind of people are they? My enemies, any one of them, can annihilate your entire clan. It's not a joke to turn them into ashes with a flick of a finger, it really only takes a flick of a finger. Yun Yang glanced at White Bear Bai and smiled amiably. The bears broke out in a cold sweat. That scared them to death. So my previous identity is no longer needed. Yun Yang sighed, as long as I enter the city with my past identity. I'm afraid that Sky Crown City will be reduced to, understood. White Bear Bai became smart at once. Master, your enemies must be influential figures, right? Yin Yang's weathered gaze said, I'm ashamed to say this. One of them is the current king of the Fox clan. The few bears began to tremble like a pendulum. Master, you're ruthless. You're really ruthless. What identity should I use? Yin Yang looked at White Bear Bai and the other bears with a frown. Even if this white bear leader could not react in time, there were still other bears. 2 heads were better than 1, they could not all be idiots. The bears were deep in thought, none of them speaking for a long time. Yin Yang secretly rolled his eyes. F***ck me, I shouldn't have counted on these bears to come up with a solution. Rather than counting on them, I might as well just flash my human identity and charge in. Forget it, I'll just go straight to the mission. The few of you, think of a way to get me a similar identity. Yin Yang said matter-of-factly, if I were to go in with an unregistered identity, with my cultivation base, it would be troublesome no matter where I go. With a mission, the only thing to think of was how to complete it. This was much simpler and more direct. White Bear Bai jumped up excitedly, thumping his chest loudly. Don't worry, Master, leave it all to this disciple. Chapter 1246. Applying for leave for 2 days. Applying for leave for I am supreme. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1247. That afternoon, White Bear San finally came back with a convoy of carriages. It couldn't be helped. Yin Yang had brought out quite a lot of things, and it was impossible to fit all of them. That night, Yin Yang's identity as a demon was revealed. It was a white stone plate. When spiritual qi was injected into it, a purple furry fox head would appear, with an introduction next to it. Violet of the Fox clan. In order to get this plate, White Bear San had spent 10,000 Saint Origin coins for nothing. Well, the name Violet was given by White Bear San. Master, this name is good, isn't it? It's far better than the vulgarity of my generation. White Bear San looked very pleased with himself. Yin Yang sighed from the bottom of his heart. Damn it, what else does your family know besides color? Forget it, Violet is Violet. It's just a name, I'll endure it. That night, the long line of carriages finally entered Tianguan City. Yin Yang finally saw the so-called peace of this city. After entering, before they could find a place to stay, they encountered 4 or 5 waves of robbers. What a peace! The dozens of human-shaped cranes at the city gate, as well as the strong men with large wings drooping on both sides of their bodies, turned a blind eye to the robberies and fights close at hand, because their job was only to check the identity of the passers-by and collect fees. No matter if foreign demons entered or left the city, they all had to pay 1 Saint Origin coin at a time, without exception. The demons in the city or within the territory of the Crane clan did not have to pay to enter or leave. As for those without an identity, they had to pay 100 Saint Origin coins at a time, and an additional 5,000 Saint Origin coins to apply for an identity certificate. This is a good business, it's very promising. Yin Yang was deeply impressed, even amazed. It had to be said that the demon race had a strong reproductive ability, and those without an identity could be found everywhere. This kind of fee was simply unreasonable. If this were to happen in the human clan, there would definitely be great chaos. However, this scene was carried out in the demon clan. It was natural and logical. All the demons actually felt that it was only natural. However, what Yin Yang did not understand was that there was an unusually large crane perched on the battlement of the city gate. It was covered in snow-white feathers and its eyes were bloodshot, standing out from the rest. It should be the commander of this area, ready to take down and punish the disobedient demons at any time. Its cultivation base was already at the level of a royal saint, and it was rather impressive. With this person in charge, it would be difficult for the ordinary demons to cause any trouble. If they did, they would be courting death. In spite of this, Yun-yang quickly came to a conclusion about this fellow. This fellow was very lazy, removing his lazy gaze that looked like he was about to fall asleep. It seemed that as long as the city gate was fine, everything would be fine for him, and he would not care about anything. When it was Yun-yang's turn to enter the gate, he was the first to prove this point. The gate guard glanced up and White Bear Bai stuffed a handful of Saint Origin coins into his hands, nodding and bowing with a fawning smile. It's this old fox. Obviously, this was the fellow that White Bear Bai had looked for last night. He turned his long neck and said, "Let's go in." Just as Yun-yang and the rest entered the city gate, a few shadows suddenly flashed in the shadows by the roadside. A few skunk-like fellows rushed to the grain carts as if they had gone mad, and each of them picked up a lifeline fruit and was about to rush out. Faced with this scene, whether it was the gate guard or his subordinates, none of them moved, as if they did not see anything, as if they were used to it. On the contrary, White Bear Bai and the other bears reacted quickly. White Bear Bai called out, and the 7 bear brothers attacked together. The skunk spat out blood and fell to the side of the road, motionless. It was obvious that they would not be able to survive. They were actually killing without any mercy. Just as they pressed on, another wave of skunks came from the other side, one after the other, without the slightest hesitation because of the dead demons in front of them. White Bear Bai and the rest handled the situation with ease. Another wave of skunks was dealt with, and only then did the carriages enter the city, temporarily safe. However, after walking for less than 1,000 feet, another group of demons rushed over. All of them were emaciated and their eyes were green. It was obvious that they were starving. When they saw the fruit of life, they didn't even care about their lives. Whoosh, 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 White Bear Bai and the rest hollered as they exerted their full strength, glaring menacingly. Finally, another wave of skunks retreated, but not long after, another wave of skunks came, and the fight began again. Looking at the demons who charged forward without any regard for their own lives, Yun-yang was exasperated. Is this the peaceful place you were talking about? White Bear Bai fought back bravely. His thick and strong arms swung the thick and strong pole. Master, this situation is already considered very good. It's very peaceful. Yun-yang was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. Do you have some misunderstanding about the word peace? We've fought 7 to 8 times in less than 3 steps, and we've taken at least 100 lives. How can you say that it's peaceful and very good? This old man is really speechless. The carriages turned and entered a wide avenue, but it was filled with people. People? Yin-Yang's gaze was fixed on them as he took a closer look. It was only then that he could see that these people, who were dressed in robes, were actually demons in disguise. From here on, there was no more fighting. There was even the melodious sound of silk pipes coming from the front, and the aroma of various foods wafted into his nostrils. There were stalls by the roadside, some selling clothes, some selling food, and there were restaurants, ghosthouses. There seemed to be brothels, and brothels, all of them clean and tidy. The scene reflected in his eyes was like a different world from what was happening hundreds of feet away, as if it was a lifetime ago. Master, as long as we're here, we'll be safe. The path we just took is probably the slums. It's inevitable that we'll be robbed by demons. White Bear Bai heaved a sigh of relief. This is the inner city. Here, even if you rob a copper coin, you'll be beheaded. Only places with such an inner city can be considered a place of order. So, this is really a holy land of peace. White Bear Bai looked at the scene in front of him and said with satisfaction and comfort. Let's find a place to stay first and let Master rest. Let's go and hand in the mission. Yin-yang checked into the guest house successfully. He closed his eyes to rest in his room, but in fact, he was planning the next step of the plan. The Crane clan was also a demon race that was gifted in flying, and the demon that entered the bound of universe to kidnap human youths first had to have the talent to fly. If so, whether or not the Crane clan was involved in this operation, they should have some understanding of it. The problem now was, how should he carry out the follow-up? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.